Chapter 1358. Wan Quangxiao, who led the army into the swamp, and Adler, who didn't make a move, became the two people with completely different views after entering the central swamp and received the most support. The sharp contrast between these two people obviously entered the eyes of the senior management of the International Special Forces Training Center. The remotely controlled flight monitoring equipment would pass through the central swamp from time to time so that the people above could observe the movements at any time and better control the whole situation. After all, it was impossible for the people above to really let so many people be annihilated inside. It was necessary to eliminate some people, and the elites of the elites would also be protected. How many people could hold on to the last moment here? I'm afraid that the people above didn't give a clear calculation. This was what Adler thought in his heart. He wouldn't let the people above filter them like chess pieces. He wanted to be the master of his own life. No matter what, he absolutely couldn't become a person who was abandoned. Even if there were many people who couldn't understand him after this mission and categorized him as a coward, he would never change his judgment. Because in the bottom of Adler's heart, there was still one thing he suspected. And he had never mentioned this to anyone. Because from the beginning to the end, he never believed that there was a damn badge in this swamp. He didn't even mention this to Neve. Because he knew that once this hypothesis was confirmed, it was likely to cause unrest. It was good that he knew it himself. Watching Wan Quangxiao seriously march into the damn swamp for the first time and return in vain, Adler was even more certain of his thoughts. If their second march was still in vain, Adler would be even more certain of his suspicions. Nearly 1,000 badges, even if they were unlucky, so many people would always find one, right? If they didn't find one, then it could only be said that this matter was unreliable. As for how things would develop, all Adler had to do was wait, patiently wait for a result he wanted. And those who had opinions, he left them to Neve to deal with. If they couldn't be reasoned with, then they could only use force to subdue them. This was what Neve was best at. So Adler wasn't worried that he couldn't handle these guys. At the same time, Wan Quangxiao, who entered the central swamp for the second time, was also thinking about the same problem. That was, if this time, they still couldn't get the badge. What the people above were thinking and what they wanted, he really didn't know. Wan Quangxiao hoped to get the badge. Otherwise, this kind of blow to everyone's heart was too huge. He couldn't imagine how many people would not be able to accept this result. If that was the case, Wan Quangxiao could only say that this training center wanted them to accept too many things. If they couldn't accept it, they could only choose to leave. There was really no other way. Wan Quangxiao naturally didn't want the ending to be so cruel, so he used all his strength to search for badges in the swamp. Even if he only found one, it would bring hope to everyone present. If there wasn't even the most basic hope, then what was the point of talking about the training mission? But reality gave Wan Quangxiao a heavy punch. It made him understand that things he hoped for would not necessarily develop according to his wishes. Perhaps, the more he hoped for something, the more it would develop in the opposite direction. Now Wan Quangxiao was facing such a situation. The more he wanted to find something, the more he felt that it was impossible to find it as time went by. Finally, such a large team had been collecting in the central swamp for a day. With more than 30 people injured, they still couldn't find the badge. They even cut open the entire stomach of the crocodile and dug out the rotten and stinky things in the crocodile's stomach, but they still didn't see half a badge. Bastard! It seemed that they were really fooled by the people above. The purpose of the so-called survival training was achieved, but they still had to bear the frustration of the mission failure in the end. However, this sense of frustration was also part of the mission training. How cruel the training center was, Wan Quangxiao really didn't want to expose it. After all, so many people still didn't understand the true meaning and purpose of the training mission. Let them experience the crisis of survival, experience frustration, and experience everything that normal people couldn't accept. That was their true goal. This was a place that tortured people to death. Wan Quangxiao smiled bitterly. At this moment, he doubted whether the choice of this place was right or not. However, these experiences were indeed extraordinary. In this life, he didn't want to experience this feeling again. Finally, someone couldn't bear the result of not finding the badge and completely broke out, "Wan Quangxiao, is there any hope?" If there is no hope, I hope you can tell us. Don't let us wait like this without any hope. If you can't give us an answer, why did you bring us here? Yes. We sacrificed so much on the way here, you have to give us an answer, right? If we can't even get a badge, then wouldn't our sacrifice be meaningless? Once the first person took the lead, there would be more people standing up and questioning. This was an inevitable situation. Wan Guangxiao had long been aware and prepared for this. He suddenly showed a very relaxed smile and said lightly to everyone present, "In fact, each of us has completed this survival training mission. There is no such thing as a badge of honor. The price we paid was sacrifice, fear, and the suffering of every second of every day. But, if we don't experience this, how can we become a true special soldier?" Although it was a plain statement, it deeply stirred up everyone's heart. That kind of oppressive explosion was like a fire spreading on a prairie, completely uncontrollable. But suddenly, everything seemed to disappear in an instant. The experience of the past few days, fear, sacrifice, and especially the pain of losing their companions, all seemed to disappear in an instant. Everyone felt as if they had just had a long nightmare. When they woke up, they realized that everything was illusory and illusory. However, the things that had been lost were all real. Those who could understand the real purpose of this training calmly showed a bitter smile. Since they had chosen this path, they had to accept everything and know how to bear everything. As for those who couldn't understand, they all revealed bitter smiles in their calmness. It was really too bitter, too bitter. When Wan Guangxiao led the team back without any achievement, Aude also quickly led people into the swamp. Only he knew that this was just a formality. Even when Neville finally understood that the so-called badge was just a waste, he was shocked and couldn't accept it. But he was very clear that Aude must have figured out this matter long ago. But why didn't he say it? Looking at all the surviving brothers, Neville understood that Adele's judgment was still correct. For the sake of the overall situation, some things, even if they were seen through, should be kept in the deepest part of the heart forever. This was the first battle between Wan Guangxiao and Aude after they met. Although they didn't confront each other openly, it also reflected the different leadership abilities of the two people. At that time, Aude regarded Wan Guangxiao as a man who might become his lifelong rival, and Wan Guangxiao also understood at that time that Aude would be the guy who would cause trouble for him in the future. Wan Guangxiao had received 2 years of leadership training at the International Special Forces Training Center. Until the time of his departure, he and Adler were evenly matched in their competition. Because of the existence of Wan Guangxiao, the international alliance in the training center also took shape, and the situation was no longer dominated by the American faction. It could be said that in the 2 years in the training center, the final winner was Wan Guangxiao. When they all left the training center and served their respective countries, the two also fought many times. Of course, fighting was not only reflected in the war. In the end, it could be said that both sides had their wins and losses. No one always had the upper hand, and no one always suffered. It was a tie. Unexpectedly, after so many years, when they had all retired behind the scenes, they still had the opportunity to fight. Chapter 1359. Wan Guangxiao's story was very long, and Su Yun had only heard a small part of it. It was all because of this old friend that Wan Guangxiao's memories were evoked. Today, he was already the head captain of Hua Xia's Dragon Brigade. He had the commander's seal and led Hua Xia's most powerful special forces. Adler was also the general of all the special forces and special operations agents in the entire United States. He was behind the scenes, and the disciples he trained had all inherited his mantle. They were cunning and meticulous, and all of their actions were carried out with the goal of achieving their goals. Just based on these people's actions, Wan Guangxiao could determine that all of this was under Adler's command. He didn't think that the most important young man in the Dragon Brigade would actually meet Adler's disciple. Fate really made fools of people. Fortunately, in the previous 2 confrontations, Su Yun didn't lose face for Wan Guangxiao. It was good that he was able to give Adler a fierce blow. Presumably, Adler had also figured out that the only person who could make his subordinates fall into such a sorry state could only be a good kid that he, Wan Guangxiao, had personally taught. Just thinking about Adler being able to realize this, Wan Guangxiao secretly felt very happy. Even if he was no longer the hot-blooded youth of the past, he still cared about winning or losing against this old rival. Even if they had all become old men, as old men, they still cared more about face. Head Captain, since you're so sure that the person behind the scenes is your old rival, then what do you think his next move will be? The only thing Su Yun cared about now was what was going to happen next. The demonized anger in his heart had been suppressed. He was waiting for the opportunity to take revenge. No matter who the opponent was, no matter how high his position was, the Fan Shuang died because of him. This hatred, Su Yun couldn't just let it go. Compared to the past, Su Yun had learned to control. Even though this kind of control was something he couldn't control, he was now able to endure it. Was it because of the impact that Guaguo brought to him, or was it because his mind was more mature than before? Perhaps there were both possibilities. However, Su Yun's calmness was only on the surface. The anger was still in his heart, and it couldn't be easily resolved. This hatred, Su Yun could only dissolve the anger in his heart after completely defeating the other party. Only then could he ensure that he would not turn into a demon. If he couldn't completely defeat the other side, Su Yun couldn't imagine how long he could hold on. This pain in his heart had to be dealt with as soon as possible. Adler's trump card will always be played at the last moment. In the current battle for Matthew, he has already lost 2 rounds in a row. Since Douglas and Carolyn can hold high positions in the CIA and the Federal Investigation Agency, it means that they are not simple people. Wan Guangxiao smiled and said, "In the case of Matthew, it is not hard to see that he has already played his trump card from the start. Furthermore, he has played 2 trump cards in a row. However, he lost both of them. If you were him, what would you do?" Su Yun frowned and said, "He has already played his trump card. What else can he do?" In the U.S., other than the CIA and the Federal Investigation Agency, there are some capable special agents in the Department of Defense. Their special forces were badly damaged by the terrorists in the Middle East battlefield. They shouldn't be able to arrange for anyone to come out for the time being, right? Wan Guangxiao nodded and said, "Indeed, the U.S. Special Forces are now involved in the politics of other countries. As for the special agents of the Department of Defense, they will not come out so easily. The crisis the U.S. is facing is also very big. Who knows how many pairs of eyes are watching them? They must keep most of their powerful forces to deal with the terrorist attacks at any time." "So, what you are saying is that in addition to these people, he has other people who can be used," Su Yun said coolly. "Is he grooming them himself?" "Yes." Wan Guangxiao nodded and said, "I heard that over the years, he has taken in several disciples that he is proud of. Although these guys don't have much status, once the big branches under him are in need of manpower, there will always be people in his hands who can step forward. These people who can step forward must have been personally trained by him. To be able to lead a special agent when they just made their debut, they are naturally not simple. Adler had a few elites that he trained independently. Wan Guangxiao had known about this for a long time. Moreover, these people had all participated in the human experiments of the U.S. Special Drug Research and Development Center. It could be said that they were a group of loyal and fearless soldiers. Wan Guangxiao really didn't know what method Adler used to train these people, but he definitely used the methods of the International Special Forces Training Center to push people to their limits again and again. Although Wan Guangxiao also came from the International Special Forces Training Center, after he returned to Huaxia, he had never used such extreme methods on the Dragon Brigade's training. He admitted that such extreme methods could make people break through their limits, but it would also leave a serious psychological shadow. Those who could break through this boundary point could naturally bear it, but if they couldn't break through that boundary point, their whole life would be ruined by the shadow. Every day, they would talk about human rights and humiliate Huaxia for not paying attention to human rights. However, sometimes, it was the exact opposite. Wan Guangxiao wouldn't use brainwashing methods to train people for some goals. Although this method could ensure that those who stayed would be the elites of the elites, it would also cause a large number of people to lose the power they originally should have. Although not everyone in the Dragon Brigade was the elite of the elite, if some methods were used to push people to their limits, perhaps some of them could be trained to be even more elite. However, it would cause a large number of people to completely lose their colors in the future. When Wan Guangxiao left the International Special Forces Training Center, many people who entered and left with him had a complete mental breakdown the moment they stepped out of the center. They were completely unable to control their actions and emotions. He remembered it clearly. If it weren't for a large number of elite soldiers who lost their minds and completely broke down in this training center every year, this training center wouldn't have been completely closed 20 years ago. This Special Forces Training Center was proposed by the United States and implemented by the United Nations. In the end, it was sued to the International Court of Justice for harming human rights. Although this place was disbanded, the people who had a mental breakdown because of the existence of this training center might still be struggling at death's door in some corner of the world. It should be known that these people were elites and talents, but they were crippled forever. The International Special Forces Training Center was abolished, but the Americans didn't give up on this method of selecting the elites among the elites. Since this kind of harming human rights was not allowed to exist internationally in training, they had no choice but to carry it out secretly. The person behind all this was the #1 person in the International Special Forces Training Center who was highly regarded by all the senior leaders of the training center, Adler. Ever since Adler was given the title of general, he devoted all his efforts to the work of training special warfare agents for the United States. Today, in the eyes of the senior leaders of the United States, Adler was a general with great achievements. In the eyes of the people below him, he was a legend among legends. And what kind of methods he used to do everything, only he himself knew, only those who had undergone his training under him knew. However, those who could bear all this and stay wouldn't expose his methods that violated human rights. And those who couldn't bear all this and were abandoned could only talk nonsense when they had a mental breakdown. No one would believe them. Although he has already played 2 trump cards, we still can't relax our vigilance. Wan Guangxiao smiled slightly. Maybe there are bombs in his cards. If a bomb holds our cards in our hands, he will throw his cards away and leave. Su Yun's eyes were unusually firm. That's not necessarily true. If they have bombs, then we have trump cards. In the end, it's really not certain who will be able to leave. Ha ha ha. Good boy, I like your character, just like when I was young. Wan Guangxiao patted Su Yun's shoulder. Su Yun smiled bitterly. He really didn't dare to accept this. When Wan Guangxiao was young, he had the ability to lead the International Special Forces to compete with Adler's faction. He didn't have this ability. Chapter 1360. No matter what kind of people Adler arranged, all they had to do was wait. Wan Guangxiao couldn't draw up any battle strategy out of thin air. Moreover, he believed that if it was someone Adler could arrange, he would definitely let them deal with things according to their own judgment. Since Adler could be so assured with the people he trained, then why couldn't Wan Guangxiao be assured with the people he trained? He could also let Su Yun do whatever he wanted. All decisions could be made according to his own inner thoughts. Wan Guangxiao was such a person. He didn't believe that the people he trained would lose to the people trained by Adler. The elites that Adler nurtured were all forced to their limits. The elites he trained relied on their own amazing willpower to take the initiative to break through the limit. This point was even more vividly reflected in Su Yun. Although Wan Guangxiao didn't pressure Su Yun and the others mentally, Su Yun had already experienced what he should have experienced. Moreover, the kind of loss that Su Yun experienced was real. It happened in actual combat, not forced out in training. Therefore, the kind of loss he experienced, that kind of pain, was definitely more real and painful than Adler's people. Wan Guangxiao was very clear that although he didn't do these extreme training under mental pressure, Su Yun had experienced what he should have experienced. These experiences were painful, but he had to admit that they were so precious. Without these experiences, Su Yun wouldn't have become who he was today. The loss behind growth was always unbearable. No matter what, it was like this. Whether it was career or love, it was the same. After leaving Wan Guangxiao's office, Wang Yi said to Su Yun, "Yu Meiren has reminded me many times. Once there is nothing here, I will let you go and find her. She is very worried about your body." Especially after hearing about Shuang Er's accident, she was even more worried. When it came to Fan Shuang Er, Wang Yi was somewhat hesitant. He believed in Su Yun's current tolerance, but he was also worried about how much tolerance Su Yun had. The things that happened that year were in front of Wang Yi. He didn't want Su Yun to repeat the same mistakes. That would really destroy him completely. Unexpectedly, fate was so torturous that Su Yun had to accept this kind of experience twice. Maybe if it was someone else, it would be fine, but it was Su Yun. This guy, the blood in his body was that man's blood. Even his personality was so similar. The thing they couldn't tolerate the most was losing someone by their side. Once they lost someone by their side, they would do anything. I understand. Su Yun nodded. Yu Meiren must be very worried about him now. Su Yun was also very clear about this. If he wasn't in a hurry to see Wan Guangxiao, he would have gone directly to Yu Meiren. Su Yun was very clear about the feeling of being worried about someone. He didn't want Yu Meiren to be worried about him like that. Before Wang Yi said his goodbyes, he patted Su Yun's shoulder heavily and said to him, "In one's life, one will encounter many seemingly insurmountable hurdles. But once one crosses these hurdles, one will realize that it is not a big deal. I can understand your feelings now. If I were you, I might be even angrier than you. You can hide your anger and even make it undetectable. This is a very good point. It's just that even if it is hidden and undetectable, it still exists." Su Yun smiled. "Master, you've watched me grow up since I was a child. You know very well what kind of personality I have. There are some things that, once I have decided on, there must be an outcome. In the beginning, this matter might have just been a hidden struggle caused by Matthew. But now, they continue to harass me again and again. I will definitely make them pay the price." Wang Yi nodded. "Very good. It's very good to have this idea. I support you. But you must control your emotions. The longer you suppress your negative emotions, the easier it is to lose control when they erupt. No matter what happens, you have to remember what I said." Su Yun nodded. Wang Yi's concern made him feel warm all over. At this time, Wang Yi's words were very, very important to him. Perhaps a reminder would allow him to suppress his originally unbearable emotions at this critical moment. And this time's forbearance could very well be the turning point that would change everything. Su Yun was fortunate enough to be in the Dragon Brigade. This was his lifetime's fortune. If it weren't for this place, Su Yun wouldn't dare to believe his own life. Looking at Su Yun's back as he left, Wang Yi couldn't help but sigh in his heart. They really are too similar. If you had the chance to see your son grow up to be like this today, you would definitely be very pleased that you entrusted him to Zhang Taisui. Ha ha ha, when Zhang Taisui sent this brat to the Dragon Brigade, he still didn't believe us. Now, if there is a spirit in the netherworld, he should be satisfied to see this brat's current appearance." After a pause, Wang Yi shook his head again. "Old Taisui. Maybe you just want us to train him into an ordinary member of the Special Forces and make him more tenacious than the average person. That way, he would be able to go back and take over your entertainment empire. If that's the case, he can also be like an ordinary person, struggling for his career and enjoying his own love and friendship. Ha ha ha, I just didn't expect this brat to be so good for you. After all, he is your godson. Are you afraid that if he doesn't get first place in something, he will lose face for you?" Su Yun wasn't just afraid of losing face for Zhang Taisui. He was also afraid of losing face for his father whom he had never met. The promise that he once said that as long as he was strong enough, he would have a chance to meet his father was now not even worth mentioning in Su Yun's eyes. He now felt that this was just a psychological sustenance for him back then. Now that he had grown up, he no longer needed this psychological sustenance. Ever since she knew that Su Yun had returned to the brigade, Yu Meiren had been anxiously waiting. Finally, after suffering for so long, she received a notice in the office that Yen Long had come to look for her and was waiting for her downstairs. Because of Su Yun's special situation, and because Yu Meiren had successfully saved Su Yun's life, Wan Guangxiao had already approved that no matter when, as long as Su Yun needed Yu Meiren, no one could stop him for any reason. This was an order. Even if Yu Meiren participated in a major medical experiment, unless she insisted, no one could force her to continue working. Finally, the person she was worried about was here. Yu Meiren rushed out of the office and went directly to the medical department building. Su Yun was waiting foolishly at the door. When he saw Yu Meiren's anxious look, he hurried forward and said, "Why are you in such a hurry?" "Aren't I fine? I've been with the brigade since I came back, so I couldn't come to see you earlier." "It doesn't matter if you see me or not," Yu Meiren said worriedly, "as long as you're fine." "You, how are you now? Is everything okay? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? You have to tell me." "Forget it. You'd better go to the dormitory with me. I'll take your pulse. No matter what, you should pay more attention. There's no harm in doing so." Although Su Yun emphasized that he was fine, Yu Meiren was still worried. She had to diagnose Su Yun personally. Only then could she be at ease. Su Yun couldn't change her mind. He could only let Yu Meiren personally confirm that his emotions didn't affect his heart and wouldn't have any negative effects on him. Only then did Yu Meiren breathe a sigh of relief. During the whole process, Yu Meiren didn't mention a word about the sacrifice in this operation. In fact, Su Yun didn't dare to say it because he was afraid that he wasn't the only one who had this problem. Yu Meiren must also have this problem. After all, her brother also sacrificed himself for the organization under the name of Yin Long. Although it was a long time ago, Su Yun understood the principle that it was hard to get rid of a problem. Chapter 1361. At Yanjing Airport, Christian had already stepped out of the plane. Dressed in a suit, he looked particularly energetic. It wasn't his first time coming to Huaxia, but it was his first time coming to a cosmopolitan city like Huaxia. The first time he came to Huaxia, General Adler arranged for them to overcome fear training. They went to Huaxia's Sichuan Shijiang area, which was definitely his most terrifying experience. Let's talk about zombies first. This thing was definitely an eternal horror topic in the supernatural world. Whether it was the black-clothed, white-faced, red-lipped aristocratic vampire in Europe, or the bloodthirsty zombie living dead in the United States, or the Huaxia-style jumping corpse with its hands stretched forward and braided hair, they were all classic legends. Were these things real or not? Whether it was feudal superstition or scientific reasoning, the world was so big. Whether these mysterious things that couldn't be explained by science were real or not, only people who had seen them could be sure. Unfortunately, very few of those who had seen it had survived, right? But under scientific research, it was found that vampires might just be patients with porphyria. Because of genetic variation or environmental toxicity during the production of heme, the photosensitive pigment produced would turn into a strong toxin once exposed to sunlight. Porphyrin was a photosensitive pigment that would gather on the skin, bones, and teeth. In the most severe cases of porphyria, porphyrin would nibble away at the tissue and muscle near the gathering area, causing the patient to be severely anemic, facial organs to corrode, and urine to appear purplish red. It was very terrifying. And for most patients with porphyria, blood transfusion and heme could effectively relieve symptoms, and it was still the mainstream treatment method. But heme was very tenacious and could still be absorbed by the small intestine through the digestive tract. This meant that, at least in theory, the ancient patients with porphyria could make themselves feel better by sucking or drinking blood. Because of this reason, the vampires in the movies might not really exist in this world. Therefore, it was impossible for Adler to find the legendary vampires to undergo psychological training to overcome fear. Also, those extremely disgusting walking corpses in the American zombie movies, people who have seen movies like Resident Evil and The Walking Dead should be disgusted by those things. And those things really existed, so it shouldn't be as disgusting as the movies. It was said that it was not the resurrection of the dead, but the result of using strong drugs to knock out the victim, and then using hallucinogenic drugs and hypnosis to control the victim. For example, in Haiti, there were many legends about zombies. In fact, wizards used drugs to knock out the victims, and then used hallucinations and hypnosis to control the victims. Therefore, it would be difficult for Adler to achieve his goal by using these two things as training to overcome fear. Huaxia's zombies naturally became Adler's first choice. They knew nothing about these ancient and mysterious creatures. From Huaxia, Ada received real and effective news. An 8-year-old boy from Huaxia fainted on the way to school for no reason. After that, the child did not behave strangely. His family thought that it was nothing serious and that it was just an accident, so they did not pay attention to it. But the next day, the boy convulsed and fainted again on his way to school. His family hurriedly sent him to a nearby hospital for a checkup. They were told that the child was fine. Since then, the child's illness had flared up every few days. Every time it flared up, he would faint first, and then he would make some strange movements. Often, his 2 hands would be stretched straight, his 5 fingers closed together, his palms open, and sometimes he would stretch out 2 fingers to make powerful gestures, dancing in the air. When it happened, the expression on the child's face was abnormally angry. He used all his strength to open his teeth and let out a low growl. The length of the coma varied. Sometimes it was a few minutes, sometimes it was even a few hours. The most incredible thing was that, other than the fact that he would bare his fangs and brandish his claws, he had one thing in common with the legendary zombies, and that was that he loved to drink blood. The first time the family found out about the boy's hobby was when he had his 3rd illness. At that time, the previous 2 illnesses had made the family somewhat prepared. After the boy's 3rd illness, the family hurriedly found a local doctor to treat the child with superstitious methods. When the doctor smeared dog blood on Xu Xiao's forehead, it was originally just a measure to ward off evil spirits. Unexpectedly, Xu Xiao became spirited when he smelled the blood. He reached out his hand to wipe off the dog blood on his forehead and greedily sucked it. All of this even led to the intervention of a certain science program. The scientific conclusion was that the boy was in a state of hysteria. Obviously, Adler did not believe this answer. He had heard some things about zombies in Huaxia before. For example, at a construction site, an excavator dug out a few zombies. Because they were exposed to the air, the zombies absorbed yang energy to revive. Other than the 2 zombies that were dug to death by the excavator on the spot, the rest of the zombies jumped away. These zombies walked by jumping, and they specialized in sucking human blood. Their speed was very fast, and their strength was even more frightening. Therefore, Adler decided to let his subordinates enter a horror zombie training. Just these rumors alone were enough to make his subordinates afraid. Christian was one of the people who had been arranged to participate in this training to overcome fear. And that time, they seemed to have really courted death, and encountered a really terrifying zombie. That so-called training to overcome fear caused 18 out of the 30 people who came to participate in it to die. The mortality rate was as high as 60%. Although the fear had been overcome, the tragic death rate left a lingering fear in their hearts. Thinking about it now, Christian still felt a little numb in his heart. Of course, other than that, Christian also came to Huaxia a few times, but not once did he not go to places that he did not want to go to again in his life. What Savage Valley, No Man's Land, Eastern Death Zone. The places that General Adler sent him to were all places where he gambled with his life. However, even so, Christian still did not hate General Adler. Instead, he was very grateful to him. Because he always thought that if it was not for General Adler's inhuman training, he would not be able to become who he was today. Sometimes, idolization was also a kind of belief. Christian's idol was General Adler. His ultimate goal was to become a person like General Adler, to be loved and supported by millions of people. Therefore, as long as it was General Adler's order, he would definitely not disobey, and definitely not have any doubts. Therefore, Christian's goal in coming to Huaxia this time, he swore to complete it. First of all, his first goal was no longer Kevin Matthew. Because General Adler had already made the judgment that it was impossible to find Kevin Matthew directly, unless he forced Kevin Matthew to take the initiative to return to America. To do this, there was a way that would definitely be effective. That was to kill all the people who were friends with Kevin Matthew in Huaxia, to make him realize that these people died because of him. Guilt would definitely make him make the best choice. And Christian's first goal was Su Yun. Although this person was the most difficult to deal with, he was also Kevin Matthew's closest person in Huaxia. Chapter 1362. Therefore, Christian's goal for coming to Huaxia was very clear. Getting rid of Su Yun was the first thing he had to do now. It was the first task he had to complete after coming to Huaxia. This was Adler's request for him. Christian's own judgment told him that getting rid of Su Yun was perhaps the only thing he had to do. After getting rid of Su Yun, other troubles could be easily solved. However, the charm of Huaxia's imperial capital was really too great. Yanjing had gathered many elements of Huaxia culture since the Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties. It had many scenic spots and historical sites and cultural landscapes. It could be said that it was the city with the most cultural heritage in the world. This place contained the charm of the Chinese nation, which would shock any foreigner. There was no doubt about this. However, what Christian liked was not these scenic spots and cultural landscapes. He was infatuated with the major nightclubs in Yanjing. The dance club that was the most popular in the United States at night was no longer of interest to Christian. Compared to the entertainment venues of the Westerners, Christian preferred the night culture of the Orient. He knew a thing or two about the charm of Hong Kong's night cattail and Korea's night cattail. However, he had never been to a nightclub in Yanjing. He was especially interested in places like Eastern Carrara and Wang Laogan's Big Stage because these names alone were enough to show the Eastern culture. However, when Christian went there, he found that these shops with Eastern culture names were not as fun as he thought. Adler had been constantly instilling Chinese into them since the day they started training, making them have to master this language well. Adler had repeatedly emphasized that this would be a language that would sweep the world. The whole world would speak this language, so they had to master the basics of the basics. However, even though Christian had been learning Chinese every day, he was still confused when he watched the two-people rotation on the Wang Laogan's Big Stage. He had no idea where the Eastern sense of humor existed. In the end, he decided to go to Suzy. Wong Cargo. Club, propaganda, these types of nightclubs to look for romantic encounters. In today's society, no matter which country it was, there were too many vain girls. Worshipping foreign things seemed to be a common characteristic of these girls. Therefore, Christian believed that he would be able to find a lot of good romantic encounters before he came up with a battle plan. In the nightclub, all kinds of men and women were intoxicated in the night, venting their inner depression to their heart's content. Dancing with strangers and having intimate contact with all kinds of men and women would make their inner world feel incomparably tense and excited. This kind of tension and excitement definitely brought these men and women not only visual and physical enjoyment, but also the kind of indulgence in their hearts, which allowed them to obtain unprecedented carefreeness. Christian's way of reducing stress was this kind of complete indulgence. Even though he was trained by Adler, he could not escape the tension and suffocation that the pressure brought to him. No one liked the suffocating feeling under great pressure. If Christian said that he was not stressed in the face of this mission, it would definitely be a lie. How could a guy who could completely defeat the 12 heavenly stars be so easy to deal with? Under the dazzling lights, the bodies of men and women intertwined. Christian blended in and soon forgot all the unpleasant past. He liked the feeling of the girls around him constantly getting close to him and letting him touch them. Under the increasingly open social atmosphere, even the East, which had always been old-fashioned and conservative, was now so open. In the vague noises of strong wine and beautiful women, Christian soon forgot that he came to Yanjing to deal with a troublesome man named Su Yun. However, the conversation of a few well-dressed and luxurious young men sitting next to him hit the bottom of Christian's heart. Following the voices, he shifted his gaze to the young men next to him. These young men were either dressed in Armani or Hermes. They were all luxury brands. The wine they drank was also the best in the nightclub. The girls sitting next to them were also the prettiest in the nightclub, the purest in appearance, the sexiest in body, and the most coquettish type. Christian knew that these young men were the legendary rich and handsome second generation of Huaxia, because it was impossible to know what kind of background these people had. Provoking them would definitely be super troublesome. In a place like Yanjing, where there were rich and powerful people everywhere, people like the little conqueror of Haitian silver spears were just scapegoats. Young Master Fu, your brother really knows how to brag. A young man with a caliper hairstyle touched the diamond earrings on his ears and said faintly, "I'm not someone who hasn't seen the world. When I was traveling in the Middle East, I even took pictures with the peacekeeping troops on the battlefield. We've also been to the United Nations and seen the personal bodyguards of those big leaders. I'm serious. Let Nyeli say something more reliable. F***CK, I'm talking about serious things. Fu Tian is brothers with the fierce man called Su Yun from the Divine Dragon Special Forces. Don't talk nonsense if you don't know anything. Nyeli glared at the young man with the caliper hairstyle. This group of people was the group of rich young masters from the BBA Supercar Club who loved Ferrari. The leader was naturally Fu Tian, and the caliper hairstyle was a brother that they rarely saw. This kid had emigrated to Australia for 5 or 6 years. After he came back, he still couldn't change his habit of bragging, saying that he had seen armed special forces. When Nyeli heard this, he was unhappy and immediately brought up Su Yun. But the caliper hairstyle didn't believe it at all. He thought that Nyeli was bragging. Divine Dragon Special Forces? Ha ha ha, I think you've watched too many cartoons. Why don't you say Divine Dragon Fighter? If you say that young Master Fu is brothers with Divine Dragon Fighter, then you're even more awesome. F***CK off, I don't want to chat with you. If you're full of bullsh*T, then that's called awesome. You think that whatever others say is bullsh*T. What do you mean? Nyeli had always been unhappy with this guy. When Fu Tian heard Nyeli's big mouth talking about everything, he also pulled him back. Don't talk nonsense about Brother Yun outside. Aren't you afraid of causing big trouble? Nyeli knew that Su Yun's identity was very confidential, so he didn't say anything. It was up to him to believe it or not. Anyway, he didn't believe what this arrogant guy said. When the caliper hairstyle heard Fu Tian's words, he was really interested. F***CK, don't be so mysterious. I believe it. God, tell me about your Divine Dragon Fighter, Su Yun. How is he awesome? Is he good at fighting? How many people can he fight alone? Is it not a problem for the few of you to fight together? If he can't even deal with the few of you, then he's definitely not a big shot. Alright, let's drink and talk. You've been out for so many years, why are you still the same when you come back? Fu Tian was a little impatient. Can't you have some backbone and take off your big talk nickname in front of us? Come, let's drink. Yanjing's door is always open. You're welcome here. Cheers, go to Australia and learn how to drink wine. The few of them toasted each other and drank happily with the beauties surrounding them. They didn't notice that the foreigner nearby was so engrossed in their conversation that his eyes were glowing with greed. It was really a case of traveling far and wide looking for something, only to find it by chance. This was too unexpected for Christian. He originally planned to use a week or even 2 weeks to come up with a plan to lure the snake out of its hole. But now, it seemed that he didn't need that long. Dragon Brigade, Su Yun. It was such a coincidence. The tall, rich, and handsome men at the next table couldn't be full of nonsense. If they knew about Su Yun's identity, their relationship was definitely not ordinary. It shouldn't be difficult to find Su Yun through them, right? Chapter 1363. Fu Tian, Huang Xiaohan, Wu Xuqing, Gao Wanya, Nyeli, and Di Cheng, whom they had nicknamed Big Joke, had all grown up together. They had been born in the same expensive private hospital and lived in the same wealthy district. They had grown up together whistling at the girls in Yanjing. He knew very well that his friends were disgusted with Di Cheng, but he had never isolated Di Cheng. This was because Di Cheng had always been the first to stand up and help him whenever they had gotten into a fight when they had been young. Di Cheng had never hesitated no matter who had hit him. It was because of Di Cheng's code of brotherhood that Fu Tian had always treated him as a brother. No matter how talkative he was, Fu Tian had never exposed him or given him a way out. Nyeli had always been unhappy with Di Cheng because Di Cheng had always relied on Fu Tian to tolerate him. The more Di Cheng boasted, the more unreliable he became. Even the most trivial matters were exaggerated. At first, they could still treat it as a joke, but the more they heard, the more impatient they became. Some of his boasting was too big, so Nieli had always suspected that Di Cheng's behavior was because he treated them like fools. Therefore, even though Fu Tian had always given Di Cheng a way out, Nieli had always exposed him. He wanted Di Cheng to be ashamed of his actions. However, Di Cheng had never seemed to feel ashamed of his words and actions. On the contrary, the more Nieli didn't believe him, the more he tried to prove that what he said was true. Therefore, the two of them had formed a vicious cycle. Ever since they bumped into each other in the afternoon, whether it was during afternoon tea or dinner, the two of them had never stopped bickering. That was why he brought them to this nightclub where it was easy to find beautiful women. In less than half an hour, they were surrounded by all kinds of beautiful girls in short skirts and tube tops that revealed their breasts. These two people actually continued to bicker endlessly. His head was a little big from listening to them. If they still couldn't drink properly, he really wanted to slap the table and leave. For a guy who had been frequenting nightclubs since he was 12 years old, drinking was naturally not a problem. Di Cheng downed the wine in his glass in one gulp and slammed it on the table. Nieli, I'm not bragging, but I met a ruthless person in Australia. I can guarantee that he's 100 times more awesome than the dragon fighter you've mentioned. You really don't know when to stop. Other than talking, can't you do something more practical? What ruthless person? Bring him out for everyone to see. Nieli snorted. Have you thought of the name of the ruthless person you're talking about before you start bragging? His name is Xiong Zhou, an assassin. Di Cheng's expression was very rich. He fell into a trap when he was carrying out a mission in Australia. When he had nowhere else to go, he broke into my house. What a guy! He even King bragged about being an assassin. Fu Tian smiled helplessly. If this grandson continued to brag like this, the girls around him would probably leave because they heard too much nonsense. He wouldn't be able to find any beautiful women tonight, and he probably wouldn't have the chance to bring them to a hotel. He really wanted to remind him that if he was smart, he should shut up early so that he wouldn't regret it when the time came. Hey, a killer broke into the house. What are you doing? Gao Wanya couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of wine. Although he was also annoyed by this guy's bragging, it wasn't to the extent of Nieli's. However, after hearing this, he really couldn't help but want to ridicule him. This was a bit too much. Didn't you use a brick to kill that assassin? He's a real fierce man. If he wanted to take my life, I wouldn't even have the chance to hold a brick. Di Cheng said, You don't believe me. Let me finish talking. That night, I brought an Australian model home for the night. Just as I was about to climax, I was interrupted by him. I was so scared that I trembled on the spot. I thought that my girlfriend at that time had returned. Nieli really broke down when he heard this. Didn't he make you impotent in an instant? What is the root of the problem now? Do you want our Yenjing girls to treat you tonight? Forget it, if you can't get it up, no one will be willing to go back to the hotel with you. Our Yenjing girls don't like to waste time with trash. Everyone here is a fierce man. Di Cheng ignored Nieli's sarcasm and continued, He is an assassin. What can we do? We do whatever he wants us to do. Guess what? He actually asked me to close the door and come back to continue doing what I should do with the model. And he was hiding in the closet next to my bed. Oh my God, I thought that this guy had a peeping problem. He actually asked us to do that. But he had a gun in his hand, so I had no choice but to do as he said. His words were treated as a joke by everyone present. Fu Tian and the rest spat out their wine, and the girls were also laughing so hard that they couldn't close their mouths. Nieli wondered if this guy was really using his life to make a joke. Did Di Cheng not think that he was bragging, but that he was just expressing his sense of humor? If that was what he thought, then fine. Nieli admitted defeat. What's so funny? That was the first time I slept with a girl in front of others. I still have a shadow of it. Di Cheng said with a serious face. You know, less than half an hour later, someone barged in again. This time, I was really scared. 5 men in black came in all at once. They all had guns in their hands. When they came to my room and saw that I was doing that kind of thing, they ignored me and went straight to the other rooms. They didn't say anything and left quickly. This guy. Had he watched too many gunfight movies? Sigh, why would a fierce master need a gun? Du Tian smiled bitterly. A master like Brother Yun wouldn't use a gun. Their fists were more reliable than guns. That's when I realized that those people were chasing after the killer hiding in my closet, Di Cheng said. Di Cheng said, the reason why he asked me to continue was because he knew that if his pursuers came here and saw that we were still on the bed, they would quickly determine that he was not in this room. Then, he would be able to escape this calamity. You're really smart. Why didn't I notice when you were young that your reaction was so fast? You could even deduce that? Huang Xiaohan held his stomach and laughed. You're too calm. Logically speaking, with your guts, you should have been scared to the point of wetting your bed, right? Ha ha ha. It wasn't hard to see that his friends were amused by Di Cheng's bragging, but Di Cheng became more and more serious. I'm really not joking. Xiong Zhou is really a killer. After the people chasing after him left, I didn't hear any movement in the closet. I thought that I was just having a dream, but the dream was too realistic. If the dream was so realistic, then it must mean that you've been taking drugs. Fu Tian finally spoke. Although it's not difficult to get some marijuana overseas, it's better if you don't touch those things. Am I that kind of person? Di Cheng said. I've never touched those things. Do you think I'm little Momo? I won't take drugs just because I have some ability. Of course, it wasn't a dream. When I opened the closet door, I was shocked. F***ck, the closet was full of blood. That scene really scared me. At this point, Di Cheng's expression still showed some lingering fear. Everyone was speechless. Wasn't this joke too much? His life was hanging by a thread. He had lost too much blood, Di Cheng said. My heart softened at that time, so I called a private doctor to my house and gave him emergency treatment. I even used my blood for a blood transfusion. We have the same blood type. After he woke up and found out about all this, we became brothers. He said that I saved his life, so no matter what happened to me in the future, he would definitely be the first to stand up and help me solve it, because his life was given to him by me. Are you done bragging? Nieli interrupted Di Cheng's bold words. Di Cheng rolled his eyes. I'll also tell you that Xiong Zhou came with me to Huaxia this time. I'll let you meet me another day and let you know if I'm telling the truth. Come. Drink. Chapter 1364. It was a good feeling to drink and brag with his friends. Fu Tian enjoyed the process. The few of them played until the wee hours of the morning. In the end, they didn't even pick up girls or have sex. A few young men walked hand in hand on the streets of Yanjing and sang loudly ***** taught us that the educated youth should go to the countryside. They even taught us to accept the education of the poor and lower middle peasants. With a wave of your hand, we will go wherever you wave your hand. The vast world with great achievements. Now that I think about it, we still love you. One is not afraid of hardship, and the other is not afraid of death. Only by marching in unison can we obtain victory. If we are determined, we will not be afraid of sacrifice. We will overcome all difficulties and strive for victory. With a single song, the entire Yanjing city's night streets were brighter than usual. They hadn't done this kind of thing for a long time. If they hadn't drunk too much today, they probably wouldn't have done such a funny thing. Everyone on the street looked at them with a look that said, "Are you a clown invited by a monkey?" Fortunately, alcohol made people lose all sense of shame. Everyone didn't feel embarrassed. Di Cheng, who had returned to Beijing after so many years, shouted loudly at the night sky of Beijing, "No matter how good it is abroad, it's not as good as our motherland. No matter how beautiful it was overseas, it was not as beautiful as his home country. No matter how round the moon is overseas, it's not as round as our motherland. Do you know why our country's moon is round?" Fu Tian also laughed loudly. "Because today is the 15th. The moon on the 15th is round and full. Then why isn't the moon on the 15th of the lunar year round abroad?" Di Cheng asked again. Nieli snorted and looked at Di Cheng with an uncultured and scary gaze. That's because there's a time difference between us and overseas. They're only 14 on the night of the 15th. Could they reconcile? An oval is already good enough. Brother Li, I never thought that you would be so cultured. You even know about jet lag. Di Cheng laughed heartily. Although Nieli had always been harsh to him, he didn't mind. Friends should be like this. They should say whatever they wanted to say, and if they didn't like someone, they should be straightforward. Only this was a true friendship. If friends still had to flatter each other hypocritically, then it wouldn't be interesting. Nieli also laughed heartily. I've always been very cultured. It's just that you guys have never seen it. Brother Li knows everything from astronomy to geography. There's really nothing that can stump us. Since young, we've been nicknamed 100,000 Wise. There's nothing we don't understand. The few of them bragged loudly as they swaggered down the street, completely unaware of the danger behind them. Right behind them, Christian had never let them out of his sight. He felt quite lucky. If it weren't for the fact that they were too drunk to drive, he wouldn't have the confidence to catch up with the Ferraris at the entrance of the nightclub. Now that they were walking on the streets of Beijing, they were completely defenseless prey in his eyes. Christian let them wander aimlessly in front of him. Finally, they stopped in an empty park. Perhaps it was because this park had memories of their first gang fight, so these guys walked over unconsciously. At that time, they had only been 7 or 8 years old. However, they had fought to the death with a group of people for a girl. The other group had been Song Dong and his 3 brothers. It was also at that time that they had formed a grudge. This grudge had been formed for more than 10 years. Until now, whenever they met, they would fight to the death. Even when he was in Di Cheng, Australia, he accidentally met Song Dong's 4th brother, Song Bei, who was traveling on a beach in Australia. He immediately brought a few of his local friends to trip Song Bei up and teach him a lesson. Song Bei was humiliated in front of the girl he brought along. Later, Di Cheng had also heard that the girl Song Bei had brought with him to Australia was the daughter of a certain group. The Song family had wanted to use the child's marriage to form a strong alliance. Unfortunately, the daughter of a rich family wasn't easy to deal with. Song Bei had lost face in front of her. In the end, he had spent a lot of money, but he hadn't even been able to hold her hand before he had to go back dejectedly. When Fu Tian and the others found out that it was actually Di Cheng who had done this, they felt very happy. The Song brothers had lost face in front of them, which was what they liked the most. Just as the few of them were reminiscing about their childhood fights with the Song brothers in this park, Christian slowly walked behind them. Friends, you're still playing in the park so late at night. Aren't you afraid of encountering zombies? No matter how good Christian's Chinese was, he still had the accent of a foreigner. Furthermore, he had appeared so suddenly in the middle of the night. There was no movement at all, but he had suddenly appeared behind them and started talking about zombies. Was he King deliberately scaring them? Everyone had goosebumps all over when they heard that. Even their little hearts couldn't take it anymore. What the CK? Fu Tian and the other brothers turned their heads and stared with wide eyes at the completely unfamiliar face of the foreigner in front of them. Their faces were filled with astonishment and anger, and all of them fell onto the ground. Do you know what the CK is? Nieli had the most straightforward temper among the few of them. He couldn't tolerate this foreigner scaring them for no reason at all. He had to let him know why the flowers were so red. If he didn't beat him up, he would be letting down the ordinary people of Huaxia who were bullied by the 8-Nation Alliance back then. Of course I know. Christian was very calm. Then, do you know what the CK is? CK. This foreigner still dared to talk back. This time, he had instantly ignited the desire of the brothers to fight. He even scolded them King. Fine, fine. I'll CK you. Then, the brothers must CK you. If they didn't beat you until you returned to your mother's womb, then they wouldn't be considered little men in Yanjing City. Get him. Fu Tian ordered under the influence of alcohol. None of the brothers cowered. They swarmed forward and directly pounced on Christian. However, it was still too inexperienced for them to deal with Christian. In just a few seconds, Fu Tian and the others were lying on the ground. They were still talking about fierce people when they were drinking today. Not long after they came out, they actually met a fierce person. His attacks were too ruthless. Di Cheng gritted his teeth and stood up. He looked at Christian in surprise. He knew that this guy was the same as Xiong Zhozhou. They weren't ordinary people. If he had known that he would encounter such a robbery today, he would have really asked Xiong Zhozhou to come with him to his brother's gathering. "Foreigner, what do you want? Just say it. Huaxia is a place where laws are emphasized. Don't mess around. Robbery is small, but don't hurt people. It won't look good if you hurt people." Christian saw that the other party was terrified and couldn't help but laugh. "I was just defending myself. It seems like you guys started it first. If you didn't pretend to be a zombie to scare people, why would we hit you? F***ck. There's something wrong with this idiot." Nieli was kicked in the stomach. It was so painful that he couldn't straighten his back. What a strong force. He had never met such a fierce person in all these years of fighting. What was more infuriating was that this person was actually a foreigner. Could it be that this foreigner knew martial arts? "If you don't want to be beaten up again, then answer a few of my questions." Christian still had a calm smile on his face. "If not, I will definitely let you taste pain 10,000 times worse than now. He. I sincerely hope that everyone can be happy and become friends. What do you think?" Chapter 1365. You'd better be clear that this is Huaxia's territory. Do you know who we are? You'd better think carefully about the consequences of touching us. Fu Tian made a decision. A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. It was impossible for the six of them to be a match for such an expert. Christian smiled faintly. "Of course I know who you are. You're the tall, rich, and handsome men that Huaxia can't touch. Unfortunately, I like to touch things that ordinary people don't dare to touch. I like to touch things that ordinary people don't dare to offend or provoke. You don't know who I am. If you did, you wouldn't be so arrogant. Ha ha ha." Was he also King Killer? Di Cheng stared at Christian with his eyes wide open. Was he here for Xiong Zhozhou? But Xiong Zhozhou had said that he had shaken off those people who were chasing after him. Di Cheng gathered his courage. There might be some fish that had escaped the net and were prepared to capture him to deal with Xiong Zhozhou. "I know. Your target should be me, right? If that's the case, let my brothers leave. I'll go with you alone. Don't care about anything else. Just come at me." What kind of situation was this? This bastard was still acting tough. Nieli gritted his teeth. No matter how good Di Cheng was at bragging, he was still a loyal brother. How could he let him bear the responsibility alone? "Don't say such things. If he dares to touch you, your brother Li will be the first to react. I don't believe that this bastard dares to kill people in Huaxia." Christian scratched his head helplessly. "If necessary, I won't show mercy. So, you'd better not try to test my bottom line. My bottom line was very shallow, and my patience was limited. Once I was forced to make a move, I would not hesitate. If you really force me to fight you, you won't have the chance to regret. Let me tell you. If you have the guts, kill me today. If you can't kill me today, I'll definitely find a chance to kill you." Nieli gritted his teeth and said, "If you don't believe me, let's try. I'll also let you know that there's no medicine for regret in this world." "Since you've said so, I'll have to kill you," Christian said calmly. Compared to Nieli, he was not agitated at all. It was precisely this kind of person who could really do such a thing. "It's not that I don't want to give you a chance. You don't cherish it. Since you want to die so much, then let me try and see what kind of effect it will have." Before Nieli could finish his sentence, Christian had already made his move. He charged towards Nieli like a bolt of lightning. Before Nieli could react, Christian had already grabbed him by the throat and lifted him above his head. Nie Li's entire body was instantly suffocated, and he was so frightened that he couldn't struggle at all. There was only one outcome waiting for him, and that was to be strangled to death in the hands of his opponent. This kind of person would definitely do what he said. They killed people as if they were stepping on ants. Killing a person would not be a burden at all. The hands of these people were stained with the blood of countless people. Why would he care about killing one more? Fu Tian didn't want to see his brother being strangled to death in front of him. He didn't have the ability to resist this perverted foreigner in front of him, so he could only choose to surrender. As long as surrendering could save his brother's life, he was willing to surrender in front of this foreigner. "Wait a minute," Fu Tian shouted. "As long as you let him go, whatever you want to ask us, I'll tell you everything. As long as I know, I'll tell you everything. But you have to let him go, let my brother go. I only have this small request. As long as you agree to it, you can ask me whatever you want to ask. I'll tell you everything I know." Christian loosened his grip a little. Nie Li, who was able to catch his breath, desperately breathed in the stale air of Yanjing. Although the PM value was quite high, and it was full of the smell of exhaust gas, he still greedily took big breaths. God knows if this foreigner would suddenly strangle him to death again. A wise man submits to circumstances. If I didn't guess wrongly, you should be the one with the most authority among your brothers and friends. Christian said faintly, "I believe you are a man of your word. He, I'll release your men, but you have to promise me that you will tell me everything you know and not hide anything from me. If you dare to play tricks with me, you should be very clear about the consequences, right?" Fu Tian nodded. "I know that people like you don't care about one or two more lives, so you can rest assured. As long as you let my brother go, I'll listen to you obediently and do things according to your orders. I won't drag you down." Ha, with your words, I'm much more relieved." As Christian finished speaking, he directly threw Nie Li's body to the side. Huang Xiaohan and Wu Shuqing quickly caught Nie Li. At this time, Nie Li was already at his last breath. The 5 strong handprints on his neck were shocking. "What exactly do you want to know? What do people like you want to know about us?" Fu Tian said faintly. At this time, Di Cheng walked behind Fu Tian and said to Christian, "If you're here for Xiong Zhou, then this matter has nothing to do with them. You only need to look for me. They have nothing to do with Xiong Zhou at all." Christian was stunned. Who was Xiong Zhou? What did he have to do with him? Then, Di Cheng threatened again, "But I'm warning you. If you dare to touch me, you'd better think about the consequences yourself. Xiong Zhou will definitely not let you go. This is Hua Xia. Do you think that you're a match for Xiong Zhou alone?" At this time, Fu Tian and the others looked at Di Cheng in surprise. It turned out that the Xiong Zhou he had mentioned was not a bluff, but a real person. Di Cheng's identity as the child who cried wolf had long been ingrained in everyone's hearts. Therefore, it was very difficult for them to believe what he said. Christian waved his hand and glanced at Di Cheng impatiently. "I'm not the least bit interested in this Xiong Zhou you're talking about. You'd better shut up. I don't have time to waste on you. Do you understand? Ask whatever you want." "I don't have time to waste on you either," Fu Tian reminded him. Christian glanced at Fu Tian and smiled disdainfully. "You're really annoying. Hasn't anyone told you before? Ha. Brat, don't try to play tricks with me with every word that comes out of your mouth. Let me ask you, what's your relationship with Su Yun?" Su Yun? Fu Tian's mind buzzed. Why had this guy brought up Brother Yun? As soon as the words Su Yun came out of his mouth, Fu Tian, Huang Xiaohan, Wu Shuqing, Gao Wanya, and even the dying Nie Li widened their eyes in astonishment. Why had this person come to them when he was looking for Su Yun? Di Cheng was also very surprised. It turned out that the Dragon Warrior really existed. He was not a fictional character that Nie Li had deliberately made up to resist him. Fu Tian tried his best to calm his breathing. He could not speak carelessly about Brother Yun. "Foreigner, do you not understand the situation in Hua Xia? There are 1. 4 billion people in Huaxia, so the probability of having the same name is quite high. However, I know quite a few people called Su Yun. Some are in the car business, some are in the pharmaceutical business, some are in the construction business, some are in the restaurant chain business, some are in the online shopping business, and some are in the logistics business. Do you want to know which Su Yun I'm related to? A cold light flashed and Fu Tian's lower abdomen was hit by Christian's flying kick. The excruciating pain made Fu Tian unable to stand up. Wasn't this guy a little too ruthless? Chapter 1366. Brother, I remember reminding you not to play any tricks with me. If you dare to play any tricks with me, I will not let you off. Christian was still smiling. Do you want me to remind you again not to play any tricks with me? Without waiting for Fu Tian to recover from the impact of this kick, Christian kicked him again. Fu Tian had been trying his best to hold it in, but this time, he couldn't hold it in any longer. With a wah, he almost vomited out all the wine he had drunk that night. However, the more sober he was, the more Fu Tian understood the importance of this matter. This guy was looking for Su Yun, which meant that this guy was a very dangerous person. Once this guy managed to get information out of his mouth, it was very likely to put Su Yun in danger, or even put some of the country's secrets in danger. This was a very serious situation. Even if Fu Tian did not want to endure this kind of torture, but at this crucial moment, he still clenched his teeth. Who said that the rich second generation did not have any backbone? F***K. I am also a person with backbone. Just because I was beaten up twice, I will say everything? If word of this got out in the future, how would he, Fu Tian, be able to continue living in this world? Then how can I raise my head in front of the Song brothers? Fu Tian made up his mind. Although I am not a big shot, but I am a man. I will not allow this to happen to me. A man lives on his last breath, and a tree lives on its bark. If he did not even have this bit of backbone, then can he still be considered a descendant of the Fu family? You must believe me. I am telling the truth. Fu Tian was still stubborn. I have liked to make friends since I was young. That's why I know a lot of people. It is normal to have people with the same name. If you don't believe me, you can ask them. Among the people we know, there are people with the same name as Bastard. I am just telling the truth. I have no intention of not cooperating with you. You are too hot-tempered. You should at least tell me which Su Yun it is. Otherwise, I'll just randomly tell you one and it's not the one you're looking for. That would be a joke. Of course, Christian did not believe Fu Tian's nonsense. He was 100% sure that Fu Tian knew who Su Yun was. Well, I'll give you a hint. This Su Yun has a nickname, Yanlong, Yanlong. Fu Tian was stunned. I'm sorry, bro. Among the Su Yun I know, I've never heard of anyone with such a lame nickname. Among the Su Yun I know, some are called De Wu, and some are called Ergo. They are all very fashionable, high-end, and classy nicknames. They're not as tacky as you said. Dragon, tacky, too tacky. Christian knew that this kid was testing his patience. That's enough. I really don't have that much patience. Let me give you another reminder. Tonight at the nightclub, I was sitting right next to you. You've mentioned Su Yun and the mystical dragon brigade more than once, so I'll tell you directly that the person I'm looking for is this Su Yun you've been talking about. Am I clear enough now? What else do you want to explain? Nieli was dumbfounded. It seemed that the reason why he got into such a big trouble today was because of his loose mouth. He had spouted nonsense. Now he had provoked someone he shouldn't have, right? But it was too late for regrets now. What had happened had happened. What the hell could he do now? This foreigner knew so much. Could he be a spy? Di Cheng was also quite surprised. It turned out that not only was Xiong Zhozhou not bragging, but the dragon fighter that Nieli had mentioned was also not a virtual character created by bragging. He also existed in reality. And he was definitely not a good person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have provoked such a ruthless person to inquire about him. With one look, it was obvious that he wanted to find his nest and deal with him. There was no way he could run away from this. Bro, we're just bragging among ourselves. Fu Tian said, how can there be a divine dragon fighter in this world? It's not like this is a two-dimensional world. I think you've been watching too many Japanese cartoons and became obsessed, right? Bro, there really isn't a dragon fighter you're looking for here. We're just talking nonsense. You've really found the wrong person. After a pause, Fu Tian continued, if it's because my brothers and I talked nonsense and caused you to misunderstand, we'll apologize to you. Let's find a place to have a few drinks and apologize. Let's just let this matter pass. Fu Tian had always been a fearless person. In the past, when he encountered such things, he would definitely fight to the death. He was really not afraid of anyone. However, ever since he came into contact with Su Yun, he had learned something from Su Yun. He had become calmer and calmer. When he encountered things, he wasn't anxious at all. He knew how to use his brain to think about problems and analyze the pros and cons of a matter. He was now analyzing the pros and cons of this matter and came to a conclusion. Now, even if he had to lower his head and pretend to be a coward, he couldn't say anything that shouldn't be said. Therefore, no matter how much humiliation he endured, he would accept it. Today, he would pretend to be a coward until the end. No matter how this bastard slapped his face, he would accept it. He absolutely couldn't betray Brother Yun. Fu Tian would never let himself be the kind of person who would be looked down upon. It seems that you really don't intend to cooperate with me, Christian said faintly. If that's the case, then I can't go back on my words. I remember that I said that if you play any tricks, I will make you regret it. I'm telling the truth. I'm not playing any tricks. It's just that you don't want to believe me. Fu Tian said, I really don't know any dragon fighter, and I really don't know any Yen Long or fire dragon. The few people I know by the name of Su Yun are all high-level talents who graduated from the intensive class of Huangxiang Excavator Technical School in Dongshan, Huaxia. I definitely don't know that lousy Su Yun that you're looking for, really. Fu Tian really had no choice but to bring out Huangxiang, who was the best excavator at the school, but unfortunately, Christian didn't appreciate it at all. The smile on his face was getting colder and colder. Okay, if you don't want to say it, then I'll think of a way to make you say it. Since you're so loyal and don't want to betray your friends, I believe that it will be difficult to pry open your mouth. Perhaps it will be meaningless to do anything to you, right? Torture? Fu Tian's Adam's apple moved. What kind of suffering had the martyrs of the Huaxia Revolution not experienced? Tiger stools, chilly water, needles pricking fingernails. F***K. Come at me if you have the guts. Let's see if I'm a tough guy. Fu Tian had hardened his heart and thrown him out. Even if you kill him today, he won't betray Su Yun. But in the future, don't let him seize the opportunity. If he did, he would personally cripple this yellow-haired foreigner with his own hands. If you don't believe me, then give it a try. However, Christian did not touch Fu Tian. Instead, he stepped in front of Huang Xiaohan and suddenly pulled Huang Xiaohan in front of him. Before Huang Xiaohan could react, Christian used an extremely violent method to bend Huang Xiaohan's arm to an unimaginable angle. The white bones of the forearm directly pierced through the skin and were exposed to the air. When Huang Xiaohan realized that he was injured, the pain in his mind had already surpassed the pain in his body. He almost fainted from the roar. When he saw his own bones piercing through his skin, Huang Xiaohan couldn't accept the fear. Everyone who saw this scene completely collapsed. They were not only facing a fierce person, but also a pervert. This is simply a madman. How could he do that to someone? This bastard. Unfortunately, they didn't have the ability to compete with the person in front of them. It was a one-sided situation. They couldn't resist at all. You are a madman. Fu Tian really hoped that everything in front of him was an illusion caused by drinking too much. Regret. Christian said faintly, but it's too late to regret. Your friend, your brother, because you didn't cooperate, they suffered such inhumane torture. His arm will be crippled for the rest of his life. Remember, it's forever. After a pause, Christian continued, Then, let me ask you again. What is the relationship between Su Yun and you? If you don't cooperate, then among your brothers, there will be a lucky person who will become a cripple for the rest of his life. Ha ha ha, who will that person be? Or, have you finally thought it through and realized that you should say what you should say? Then, everyone will be safe and sound, and we will still be good brothers in the future? Enough. You are enough. Fu Tian was really scared. Why do you have to be like this? The rest of the people, Wu Xuqing, Gao Wanya, Nieli, and Di Cheng, all looked at Fu Tian in horror. Could one sentence from Fu Tian make them regret for the rest of their lives? Chapter 1367. Are you going to sacrifice so many people for him, or are you going to sacrifice him for so many people? Christian smiled. What's more, he's so powerful in your eyes. Maybe I'm not his match. What do you think? Fu Tian gritted his teeth and glared at Christian fiercely. However, Christian did not vent his anger on him at all. Instead, he wanted to make a move on the others. Adler had given them enough education in human psychology, so Christian knew what methods to use to provoke Fu Tian. Dealing with his brother would definitely be more effective than dealing with him. He only needed to make him understand a simple truth. Su Yun was far stronger than the people around him. The people around him were not even qualified to be cannon fodder. He did not need to use these innocent people to insist on what he thought should be insisted on, because in the face of a powerful threat, his insistence might be nothing more than bullshit. What he insisted on would not be exchanged for anything, but would only cause more brothers and friends to die. With a simple psychological blow, Christian could completely crush Fu Tian's weak heart. After all, they were not at the same level at all. In front of Christian, Fu Tian was really no different from a primary school student. It could be said that he was completely under Christian's control. What do you want? Don't do anything to them. They are innocent. If you have anything to do with them, just come at me. It has nothing to do with them. Fu Tian almost gritted his teeth. Why do you have to force me like this? I don't have any enmity with you. I beg you, let my brothers go. Then you plan to continue to insist on protecting Su Yun? Christian smiled and said, Ha ha ha. I'm sorry. If that's the case, you can only apologize to your brothers here. I will make them live the rest of their lives one by one. The reason for all this is because of your ridiculous persistence. Ha ha ha, I don't know if your brothers will continue to be brothers with you after they figure it out. This guy is simply a demon. A devil. A bastard who will definitely go to hell after he dies. Fu Tian's heart was on the verge of collapse. Heavens! We're not familiar with him. If he wants to know something, just tell him. Do you really want to see everyone get crippled? Nieli wasn't a coward, but at this moment, he was very clear that if Fu Tian didn't do anything, they would really be powerless to reverse the situation. At that time, they would be the ones to regret it. It was definitely not Su Yun. Although they respected Su Yun very much, if they were to be crippled and killed by this pervert because of him, what honor would they get? No one even knew why they were crippled. It was not worth it at all. Thinking of the tragic scene just now, Nieli didn't want them to become disabled in the future. This was a lifetime. This was not a computer game where you could revive after dying. Dying in real life meant dying. There was no such thing as resurrection. We're not familiar with that, Su Yun. We only know each other because of some things. Seeing that Fu Tian didn't respond, Nieli quickly explained to Christian, we only have such a small relationship with him. At most, we're just acquaintances. What I said is the truth. Really? Even if you're not familiar with him, I believe that you can at least invite him over, right? Christian's gaze still fell on Fu Tian, because he was sure that among the people present, he was the only one who could contact Su Yun. Because the person who easily confessed Su Yun's identity must have a very shallow relationship with Su Yun. The only person who would protect Su Yun was Fu Tian, so Fu Tian was the only one who had the closest relationship with Su Yun. The only one who could contact Su Yun was probably himself. If Nieli could contact him, he would have already sold him out, right? Enough. I said, this matter is only related to me. Fu Tian said, let's make a deal. You let them go, and I'll stay. I'll help you contact Su Yun. Little brother, do you think I'm an idiot? Your weakness is these people. If I let these people go, what can I use to control you? Christian said lightly, you know very well that the person I'm looking for is Su Yun, not you. If I kill you, I'll lose the clue of Su Yun. So, I won't kill you. You're not bad. You can still be so rational at this time. I think highly of you. However, if you continue to challenge me, the next person to be crippled will be. As he spoke, Christian's gaze had already turned to Nieli. Stop. Let's talk. Whatever you want, I'll cooperate with you, but you can't hurt them anymore. Fu Tian said, I'll cooperate. You have to remember that we're not cooperating. I'm threatening you, understand? So, you don't have the qualification to negotiate with me. Christian still said in a calm voice, if you understand this, everything between us will be much easier. If you can't see through such a simple problem, it only shows that your intelligence is used in the wrong place. Fu Tian sneered and looked up at the foreigner in front of him. He would remember this face as long as he didn't die tonight. Even if he used a lot of connections and wasted a lot of energy, he wouldn't let this bastard go. He wanted to return what this bastard had done to them 10,000 times over. You can give Su Yun a call and tell him everything that's happened. If he's really worthy of your perseverance, then he will definitely come to help you. If he's not, then he definitely won't come. If he won't come, then you're still persevering for him. Isn't that too stupid? Christian suggested. Fu Tian laughed and said, your idea is really good, but I'm not a fool. I'll contact Su Yun. It's definitely not to compromise with you. Brother Yun will definitely come. He's a righteous person. You'd better not regret it. As long as he comes, you will definitely die miserably. That's my business. You don't have to worry about it. Christian said, what you have to do is to call him for me. It's that simple. Fu Tian clenched his teeth and said in his heart, Brother Yun, I really have no other way. The only person who can save my brothers is you. If it's really inconvenient for you to come out, I won't blame you. If you can help me, please help me. If I, Fu Tian, am tortured, then it's fine, but I can't implicate my brothers to suffer with me. After a final struggle in his heart, Fu Tian finally chose to call Su Yun's phone. Although he must be asleep in the middle of the night, he couldn't do anything about it. It was just that whether Su Yun could be in Yanjing now was a problem. In the end, how their fate would change today depended on this phone call. You'd better give a better reason. Just as Fu Tian made the call, Christian had already controlled Nieli and grabbed Nieli's skull. Listen to my words. Otherwise, I'll let him be a vegetable with cerebral palsy for the rest of his life. Fu Tian shuddered. He had no choice now. He could only be manipulated by this damn foreigner. You said that you were kidnapped by robbers. He's the only one you can ask for help. He'll definitely come and save you. After Christian finished speaking, the hand that grabbed Nieli's skull had blue veins popping out. Nieli's face changed instantly. It's so painful. I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you, Fu Tian said in a panic. Chapter 1368. In the middle of the night, Su Yun was sleeping soundly when he was woken up by a phone call. There were only two kinds of people who would call him at this time. One was someone who really had an urgent matter, and the other was someone who wanted to scam him. Su Yun picked up the phone in a daze. If it was a scam call, Su Yun was even prepared to curse the other party's entire family. However, the phone was silent. He would never have thought that at this moment, on the other end of the phone, Fu Tian was actually being controlled by General Aid's favorite disciple, Christian. Brother Yun, it's me, little Tian. Fu Tian's heart was in a mess. He really didn't want to lie to Su Yun, but reality made him feel powerless. If he didn't do this, these brothers. Just thinking about it made Fu Tian feel weak all over. The world was just that unfair. The strong preyed on the weak. Facing a guy who could easily kill the people around you at any time, you didn't even have the slightest chance to resist. Su Yun was a little surprised. Fu Tian wouldn't casually contact him. In the middle of the night, Fu Tian was such a hedonistic young master. Could it be that he was inviting him to drink wine and participate in some underwear party? If that was the case, Su Yun must educate him properly. He must learn more about Marxism-Leninism and stop indulging in wine and women. It wasn't good to be like this at such a young age. When his body was hollowed out in the future, he would be the one who would regret it. It's so late. What's the matter? Su Yun yawned. If you have something to fart, just spit it out. I have a temper when I wake up, so don't tremble when I get angry. It's best if you give me a reason to not get angry at this time of the night. Brother Yun, are you in Yanjing? Fu Tian took a deep breath and mustered his courage to ask. He was in a dilemma right now. He hoped that Su Yun wasn't here, but he also hoped that Su Yun was here. That kind of dilemma made him a little inarticulate. Well, if you're not in Beijing, then forget it. When Christian heard Fu Tian's words, he glared at him fiercely and pointed at Nieli, who was under his control, warning him not to play any more tricks. If he played any more tricks, don't blame him for being merciless. He didn't want to kill anyone, but if he was really forced into a corner, he wouldn't be polite to anyone. As long as Fu Tian said something unimportant again, he would let him know the consequences. Su Yun was stunned. What kind of trouble did this brat encounter? Why is he so agitated? I'm in Beijing. How did you know? If you want to treat me to a drink, we'll talk about it another day. I've been quite busy recently. I'm too busy. Fu Tian really wanted to talk about it another day, but that foreigner couldn't wait for another day. If he said something wrong, it could cause Nieli to be in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. Brother Yun, I've been kidnapped. Can you help me? You've been kidnapped? Su Yun couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. How many people in Yanjing don't know who you are, young Master Fu? Kidnapping you? Wouldn't that be courting death for himself? Don't joke around. What's the matter? Be serious. Do you really not want me to sleep in the middle of the night? I'm telling the truth, Fu Tian said helplessly. As he said that, he glanced at Christian. His gaze seemed to be saying, "Look, if I can't get them here, I can't say that I didn't try hard enough. It's because they can't believe it. If they don't believe it, then I can't force them to believe it, right?" Christian looked at Fu Tian expressionlessly. He didn't have any intention of listening to his explanation. As long as Fu Tian couldn't get them here, Fu Tian and the others would be wronged souls under his hands. Blame it on Su Yun. It had nothing to do with him. He was just doing what he had to do. Brother Yun, my life is really hanging by a thread. If you don't come and help me, I'll definitely die in Maple Forest. I will definitely die in Maple Forest Park today, Fu Tian said. Big Brother Yun, if you have the time, come and help me. *CK off. Stop talking nonsense. Su Yun laughed and scolded. If you are really kidnapped, then you should call your father. At most, they will ask for a ransom of 10 million yuan. It's not like your family can't afford it. Well, I'm going to sleep. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. You, Fu Tian, are the only son of the Fu family. Believe me, the people who kidnapped you will only want your money. They won't want your life. You can rest assured and stay here. After that, Su Yun hung up the phone directly. Fu Tian was stunned. What was going on? Everyone's face was full of shock. Fu Tian had tried his best and even risked his life to protect a person. How could he be so unloyal? They just said a few words, and the other side hung up the phone. It was simply too unloyal. If Nieli wasn't controlled by Christian at this moment, he would have roared. Everyone's heart was surging. They couldn't believe that those words were said by Su Yun. They respected Su Yun, but they didn't expect Su Yun to disappoint them so much. This huge contrast made them unable to accept it. It was too unbearable. You heard it, right? Fu Tian's performance was quite calm. He almost didn't have any emotional fluctuations. He looked up at Christian and said, "I have tried my best, but he really won't come. It's meaningless for you to continue to make things difficult for us. I can give you money, I can give you anything you want. If you let my brothers go now, I'll call home and I'll transfer the money to your account within 10 minutes. How much do you want? Give me a number." Christian stared at Fu Tian ferociously. "I'm not a lowly kidnapper. I want people, not money." You heard it too. It's not that we don't want to help you. It's that person who is unloyal. He won't come at all. Di Cheng hurriedly explained, "You can't blame us. That person doesn't treat us as friends, so we don't have enough weight to be used as bargaining chips. You should find someone with enough weight to be your bargaining chip. We can help you as long as you let us go." Now, they had to fight for time to bring Huang Xiaohan to the hospital as soon as possible. If his arm didn't get treated in time, the consequences would be unimaginable once it got infected. Moreover, Huang Xiaohan had already fainted. If he was in shock for a long time without emergency treatment, his life would be in danger. "That's right. Since that guy is so unloyal, we will help you deal with him," Nieli hurriedly said. "The few of us are from big families in Beijing. It's easy for us to find out about someone. We can help you find out who Su Yun's weakness is in the shortest time possible." Christian snorted disdainfully and threw Nieli aside. "I know better than you who his weakness is." Christian wouldn't repeat the old method of the 12 heavenly stars. He believed that after the first experience, the other party would definitely be prepared. Therefore, even if Su Yun wasn't in Xinjiang, it wouldn't be that easy to succeed in Xinjiang. Instead of taking the initiative to enter the enemy's encirclement, it would be better to lure the enemy out himself. It would be much easier to deal with Su Yun alone. Although Su Yun had said over the phone that he wouldn't come, Christian's strong sixth sense told him that Su Yun would definitely come. "Since you know his weakness, what use do you have for us?" Di Cheng said, "Just let us go. We're really useless. We'll only be an eyesore if we stay here." Christian's lips curled up into a sinister sneer. "But I don't think so. I think you guys are still quite useful. Why don't we make a bet? Su Yun will definitely come later. If he doesn't come, I'll let you guys go. If he comes, I'll let you guys die with him. What do you guys say?" Chapter 1369. What the hell does this guy mean? Fu Tian's face was full of confusion. Is there something wrong with his ears? Didn't he hear what he said? Su Yun had told them very clearly that he would not come. Is there something wrong with this foreigner? What kind of person is Su Yun? I'm afraid that you, as his friends, don't know him as well as me, his opponent, Christian said proudly. Christian said proudly, "Then let me tell you what kind of person Su Yun is." As his opponent, and it could even be said that he was the most important opponent in his life, Christian naturally had to put a lot of effort into Su Yun. General Aude was in a high position and had a lot of information under him, so it was easy for Christian to understand Su Yun. Getting this information was also thanks to the PRISM monitoring system. Although in recent days, because Snowden exposed their surveillance in the United States, they lost a lot of secret information channels, but the information they had before was enough for Christian to understand Su Yun. Christian knew all the information about Su Yun that the United States had obtained before. Su Yun was a person who could go berserk because of the death of his companions, and his inner demons could even erode his own soul. How could such a person not be loyal? Loyalty was not a trait that could be mentioned in front of him. It was simply his nature, something that he was born with. Just now, Su Yun rejected Fu Tian so quickly, which was quite disappointing in Fu Tian's eyes. But in Christian's eyes, he did not think so. He was 100% sure that Su Yun would come, and his rejection over the phone was nothing more than a bewitching balm. It was to let him relax and think that he would not come, and then suddenly appear to kill him. This was the way Yen Long and Su Yun behaved. Christian was a little complacent, not because he exposed Su Yun's scheme, but because he was able to get Su Yun out in such a short time. This was simply faster than he had imagined. If the general knew that he got rid of Yen Long so quickly, he really didn't know what kind of reward the general would give him. Su Yun should be the most loyal opponent I have ever seen, so using his friends as bait is the best way. Christian said lightly, I can guarantee that since you found him, no matter how busy he is, he will take the time to see what is going on. After all, you are the kind of person who is willing to sacrifice your life to protect him. Su Yun appreciates you and makes friends with you because you are loyal. Everything you do is for your friends. You mean, Brother Yun, he will come? Why would he come? Fu Tian certainly couldn't believe it, but this guy's analysis seemed to make some sense. Christian laughed and said, You will make a great sacrifice for your brothers. This shows that your character is really similar to Su Yun. Do you think that people like him will casually make friends with ordinary people? Since you can contact him, it shows that he thinks highly of you and treats you as a friend. As long as he treats you as a friend, he will never let you be in trouble and not care. This is Su Yun's character. So I can guarantee that he will appear, and he will appear soon. After a pause, Christian continued, Don't forget, you have already told him the most important information. You are in Maple Forest Park. He only needs to know the destination, and that is enough. You mean, Brother Yun wants to attack by surprise? Fu Tian said, He said that he won't come, but in fact, he will come? So, the reason he said that is to make you relax your vigilance. Right? You're right about that. Christian smiled faintly. Su Yun is not a brainless man. Before he does anything, he will have his own analysis and judgment. He knows better than anyone what is best for him. Fu Tian, who had given up, suddenly realized that Su Yun had really returned. He couldn't help but worry about Su Yun. If that was really Big Brother Yun's plan, then that B***** had already exposed his plan. What was he going to do? Not only would this not make him relax his vigilance, but it would also make him more cautious. This would be even more disadvantageous for Su Yun. As soon as he thought of this, Fu Tian panicked. Compared to the current situation, he seemed to hope that Su Yun would not come here. If he did not come, this foreign grandson's plot would not succeed. This is a game between me and him. It is your honor to be able to participate in it, Christian said faintly. Christian said indifferently, There's no point in keeping you now. Of course, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to meet Su Yun so quickly. So, in order to express my gratitude, I will spare your lives. Nieli swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva. Does that mean that we can leave now? They had already sobered up from the alcohol. Now, they just wanted to go to the hospital to save people as soon as possible. They really couldn't afford to delay any longer. You let them go. If you are worried, I will stay here. Fu Tian said, As long as I am here, I won't play any tricks. In this way you can rest assured. They can also go to the hospital earlier. It is a good thing for all of us. It is definitely a good thing for all of you. But it is not necessarily for me, Christian said faintly. I said that I will spare you, but it doesn't mean that I will let you go. When you wake up, everything will be over. As soon as he finished speaking, Christian made his move. Fu Tian and the rest could not follow his speed with their naked eyes. In the blink of an eye, they were all knocked unconscious on the ground. Only Fu Tian and Di Cheng were left. Just as Christian was about to attack Fu Tian, Di Cheng still stood up to block the knife for his brother, just like before. Unfortunately, Christian's hand knife was far more powerful and terrifying than the knife. In just one move, Di Cheng completely lost consciousness. When his mind was blank, he regretted that he did not bring Xiong Zhou to this party. If Xiong Zhou was also there, perhaps the current situation would not be like this. Seeing that all his brothers had fainted, Fu Tian knew very well that they were already powerless. You will definitely regret provoking Brother Yun, I promise you. You will also definitely regret provoking me like this. Christian grinned and hit the back of Fu Tian's neck harder than before. Fu Tian only felt as if his whole body was paralyzed. Before he could carefully experience this feeling, his brain buzzed and he completely lost consciousness. Perhaps this feeling was no different from death? What Christian had to do next was to wait for him to come. Christian's guess was right. Of course, Su Yun would not leave a friend who had called him for help alone. The reason why he had hung up the phone directly was indeed to use this method to paralyze the other party. If Su Yun's guess was right, if Fu Tian had been kidnapped, he would definitely not have called him, unless his brain grew on a pig's butt. If he had called him, it must be that this matter could only be solved through him. If he did not go, Fu Tian would definitely not be able to get through this today. After all, Fu Tian's character was not bad and he was also quite loyal. Su Yun definitely could not ignore him. Therefore, after hanging up the phone call with Fu Tian, Su Yun immediately got dressed and prepared to go to Maple Forest Park to see what had happened. Although the Dragon Brigade headquarters was quite far from Maple Forest Park, he still had to go. If he did not go, he would not be able to rest assured. Tonight, the people on duty at the entrance were Cong Long Xing Jie and Soaring Dragon Guan Liang from the Dragon Battle Special Forces. They were quite surprised to see Su Yun going out so late. "Leader Yen, why are you going out so late? Is there anything you need us to help with?" "Just meeting a friend. It's not a big deal." Su Yun smiled slightly. He did not want to trouble the brigade with his own matters. Because Su Yun was a person with a special identity, the brigade had given him special amnesty. Therefore, he could go out whenever he wanted to. Xing Jie and Guan Liang immediately opened the door for Su Yun to go out. Chapter 1370. Su Yun rushed towards Maple Forest Park. Just who could force Fu Tian to seek his help in order to escape? He really could not think of anyone. Could it be those Lamborghini-driving fellows who were opposing them? Although they were all first-rate playboys in the capital, they would usually fight fiercely, but they would not go too far. If they went too far, although their friends would not mind, their parents would be slightly embarrassed when they met. Therefore, this matter was definitely done by outsiders. Someone who would not hesitate to offend the wealthy Fu family in Beijing must be an extremely evil person. As the saying goes, a barefooted person would not be afraid of someone wearing shoes. Perhaps the other party was a barefooted person. Furthermore, it was highly possible that he had lost to the Fu family in the business world, causing him to lose everything. Under such a twisted mentality, he would take the extreme route to take revenge. Of course, these were all Su Yun's guesses. As for who the other party was, Su Yun could only determine with his own eyes. No matter what, it was best to be careful. Fu Tian's stuttering speech showed that he was still filled with fear towards the person who kidnapped them. When the car was about 2 to 3 kilometers away from Maple Forest Park, Su Yun stopped the car and walked towards Maple Forest Park. At this time, the park was already empty. Even those who liked to look for excitement in the wild had already packed up and gone home to sleep. In the entire park, other than the rustling of the trees, it was hard to hear any other sounds. In such a quiet place, any sound could be heard clearly. Therefore, it was not difficult to find someone's aura in such a quiet place. Even though these fellows were already knocked unconscious and their aura was very weak. However, Su Yun still managed to find them very quickly. In this quiet maple forest, there were only a few weak auras. Su Yun suddenly realized that he might have fallen into a trap. When Su Yun reacted, it was already too late. Christian was like a giant eagle that descended from the sky to pounce on its prey. In a situation where Su Yun was unprepared, he directly attacked Su Yun's head. This kind of sneak attack, even the famous Yen Long would not be able to withstand it. Christian was confident that he could kill Su Yun in one move. Facing someone like Su Yun, if he couldn't finish him off in one move, he probably wouldn't be able to gain such a huge advantage in a prolonged battle. It wasn't that Su Yun didn't expect his opponent to suddenly appear and launch a sneak attack on him, but he didn't expect his opponent to be so strong. That sudden burst of murderous aura was so dense that even Su Yun felt a strong sense of suffocation. His opponent was really powerful. Su Yun held his breath and tried his best to turn around and parry, but he still couldn't avoid his opponent's sneak attack. A powerful gust of wind swept past Su Yun's back and directly hit his shoulder blade. Su Yun staggered and quickly retreated a few steps. This guy was strong, but he still liked to use such despicable sneak attacks. This made Su Yun feel quite disdainful. The word despicable was used for this kind of person. Christian's shock was no less than Su Yun's. He never expected that Su Yun would be able to dodge his most fatal attack at such a critical moment. One had to know that as long as that strike hit Su Yun's back, even an immortal would be powerless to save him. He didn't expect Yen Long to not only live up to his reputation, but also be able to dodge such a sudden attack. "Brother, you're really sneaky." Su Yun's shoulder was injured, and he looked around vigilantly. He wasn't sure if his opponent had any helpers. If his opponent had helpers, then he was afraid that he would be in trouble today. "Captain Yen Long of the Dragon Fury team, you really live up to your reputation. Your reaction speed is really fast." Christian smiled slightly. In a situation where there's no time to react, you can still dodge the attack with your vital parts. I'm afraid there aren't many people in this world who can do this. "Captain Yen Long, is your left shoulder okay?" Su Yun snorted softly. Looking at the guy in front of him who knew him like the back of his hand, it seemed that the opponent's target today wasn't Fu Tian and the others, but himself. Looking at the few people who had fainted on the ground, and the kid who had suffered such a serious injury with his arm broken, it seemed that this foreigner must have made them suffer a lot. No wonder Fu Tian's voice sounded so strange when he was talking on the phone. It seemed that he really didn't want to betray him. The opponent's goal was clear, his skills were extraordinary, and his mind was vicious. Could it be that he was one of General Aid's men that Wan Guangxiao mentioned? Su Yun was stunned. It seemed that the things he considered before coming here were too simple. "You're one of General Aid's men, right?" Su Yun exposed Christian's identity without hesitation. "I didn't really listen to the nonsense you said just now. But now, you'd better listen to everything I say clearly." Christian was very shocked. How did Su Yun know his identity? Could it be that Hua Xia's spy intelligence had reached such an advanced stage? They could even investigate his identity. It must be known that he was secretly trained by General Ade. He was not at the same level as those CIA, FBI, and Department of Defense agents. Christian, whose identity was exposed by Su Yun, instantly felt unusually uneasy. As a member of General Aid's secret team, he had long been used to battles where he knew everything about others, while others knew nothing about him. There was a saying in Hua Xia, "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated." He had always been a person who knew himself and his enemy, and at the same time, made his opponent completely confused. Suddenly, there was a subtle change in this role, and it still made him particularly uncomfortable. His mind was now full of thoughts about how much Su Yun knew about his identity. "You guys really don't know when to stop." Su Yun sneered. "Let me tell you, if this is America, what you want to do is your business, and I have no right to interfere. But this is Hua Xia. You have to take full responsibility for everything you do. Causing serious injury is a heavy punishment in Hua Xia. You just need to be prepared to sit in jail for a long time." Christian's mouth twitched. "I didn't expect that as a member of the military, you would care so much. These things should be handled by the police. You don't need to interfere. If the police in Hua Xia have the ability, I definitely can't escape. But if they don't have the ability and are a bunch of useless people, then don't blame me for getting away with it. To deal with you, I'm afraid the police don't need to take action. I'll take care of it myself." Su Yun also continued to play psychological warfare with Christian. "About Matthew, how many times do I have to say it before you understand? No matter how many people you have, you will still lose to Hua Xia. Because Matthew doesn't want to leave, you can't find him at all. Do you understand?" Christian sneered proudly. "So, my target is not Kevin Matthew, but you. Hee, it seems that I'm already a thorn on your government's blacklist," Su Yun said disdainfully. Hua Xia's door is always open. You are welcome to find me. It's just that whether you can go back or not depends on your ability. Su Yun, you're injured. Don't force yourself anymore. Christian could see that the injury on Su Yun's left shoulder was quite serious. I don't have time to play a game of cat and mouse with you. I'm killing you to let Matthew understand one thing. As long as he stays in Hua Xia for one more day, the people around him will be in danger one more day. Everyone around him will leave one by one because of his decision. Guess, if that's the case, will Matthew obediently follow me back to China? This guy is really a bastard trained by Adler. He really deserves it. Su Yun really wanted to ask him, does your family know that you're so despicable? Does your family know that you're so sinister? Does your family know that you're so mean? Learn how to be sinister and despicable. Look for Adler to eats H*T in America. Chapter 1371. Matthew's heart has long belonged to his own country. There is no Kevin in this world. There is only one person called Matthew. Su Yun sneered. And this person, no matter what method you use, you will never be able to take him away from Hua Xia. If you want to fight, then come and try. Let me see what kind of player you are. Christian shook his head confidently. Yanlong, you are indeed a very powerful person. Moreover, since you left the Dragon Brigade, you have improved by leaps and bounds. I know all of these things very well. I am indeed not confident that I can defeat you alone, but I am afraid that you also don't have the strength to defeat me, right? Su Yun was very confident. That is not necessarily true. If you have not tried, how can you be so sure that your information is accurate? Perhaps your intelligence isn't as perfect as you think it is. What do you think? Yanlong, don't continue to play psychological warfare with me. Christian said indifferently. The more you say this, the more it shows that you are not confident that you can defeat me. If you could really defeat me easily, I am afraid you would not talk so much nonsense to me, right? I will say the same to you. If you were really confident that you could defeat me easily, I am afraid you would not talk so much nonsense to me. Su Yun countered. Since you are not confident, why did you dare to come to Hua Xia alone? The feeling of never coming back is not good. Christian would not easily admit defeat in psychological warfare. Perhaps I was not confident in the beginning, but it is different now. Your shoulder injury must be very serious. My chance of winning is above 80%, while your chance of winning is only 20%. We all know this probability. Fiery Dragon, you don't need to pretend anymore. There is no hope for you to fight with me. Since you are so confident, then the question is, why are you not fighting? Su Yun met Christian's gaze provocatively. Do you know the reason? If you don't know, I can tell you, because you only suspect that my left shoulder is injured. But whether it is true or not, you do not know. Did he want to use the provocation in his heart to see through it? Ha ha ha, it doesn't matter if I'm injured or not, don't even think about being arrogant in front of me. The burning anger in Su Yun's body finally burst out. The conversation with Christian was indeed something that Su Yun needed to stall for time, because his left shoulder had indeed suffered a serious injury. If he didn't need this time to recover, Su Yun's left arm would always be in a state of numbness. If they fought in this state, Su Yun wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. However, he made use of his opponent's cautiousness and paranoia to prevent Christian from acting rashly. This gave Su Yun precious time to relieve the numbness in his left shoulder. Although his left arm was still injured, at least the numbness had disappeared. He would not be unable to move when facing his opponent. At this time, Christian also understood Su Yun's intention. He realized that he was crippled by Su Yun's deceit in war, and this was the best opportunity for him. It seemed that this Su Yun was not only an ordinary man who only knew how to use his fists and feet, but also a military counselor who knew how to use his brain and strategy. No wonder he could lead a special team. He really couldn't be ignored. Interesting. I like to be opponents with brains. Christian stretched out a finger and pointed at his temple. Otherwise, it would be too boring. Ha ha ha, Yen Long, if we are not opponents, we will definitely become good friends, right? In Hua Xiao's words, it should be called, heroes cherish heroes, right? Can you not think so highly of yourself? If you don't learn Chinese well, don't flatter yourself. Su Yun said disdainfully, if you are smart, you are called a hero. If you are brave, you are called a hero. A hero has the ambition to reach the clouds, the momentum to swallow the mountains and rivers, the volume of the 9 provinces, and the breadth of the 4 seas. Shoulder justice, save the people from fire and water, and save the people from hanging upside down. A hero has the ability to despise everything, and the momentum to show disdain for heroes. Not only is the world in awe of them, but they are also elusive. Facing Su Yun's 3-character classic and rhyming words, Christian really had a hard time listening. However, he could understand the central idea of Su Yun's words. That was to say, he was definitely not worthy to be a hero. He was not even worthy to carry the shoes of a hero. You are at best a bear. Su Yun said disdainfully, other than having some strength, there is nothing else. Am I right? Christian almost got angry because of Su Yun's disdain. However, he subconsciously thought at the first moment that once he got angry, he would fall into Su Yun's trap. In a confrontation between 2 experts with similar strength, the angry party would definitely lose. This was because anger would make people lose their minds and make them impulsive. Once people lost their minds and were impulsive, they would lose their judgment. Without accurate judgment, failure was inevitable. I am not so easily angered by you. Christian's voice fell and he attacked again. He wanted to gain the initiative by striking first. No matter whether Su Yun's shoulder injury was serious or not, he had to suppress him first. According to his intelligence, Su Yun belonged to the category of warriors with terrifying explosive power. He could burst out a strong impact in a short period of time. If Su Yun burst out first, he was afraid that he would not be able to match him. Therefore, Christian's first choice was to launch a sneak attack, and his second choice was to strike first. The most disadvantageous thing for him was to wait for a counterattack. Once Su Yun seized the opportunity, his counterattack would be completely impossible. Even if he struck first, Christian also felt that Su Yun was difficult to deal with. Such an opponent was definitely not to be underestimated at any time. Christian was an elite trained by Adler. An elite would naturally not make a stupid mistake like underestimating the enemy. Of course, Su Yun would not underestimate the enemy. His left shoulder was injured, so he needed to be more cautious in the battle. The opponent would definitely grab his injured left shoulder and launch a fierce attack. This was a bad thing for Su Yun, but it was also a good thing. The bad thing was that once the opponent hit the injured part, his combat power would be weakened even more. The good thing was that Su Yun could judge this point and effectively resolve it and take precautions in advance. This would make many of the opponent's attacks go up in smoke. Optimistically, this was Su Yun's advantage. Christian really did not disappoint Su Yun. From the beginning, he attacked Su Yun's left shoulder, hoping to use this method to force Su Yun to reveal a flaw as soon as possible. Unfortunately, not only did Su Yun not reveal a flaw, but he also used this point to consume Christian's stamina in a short period of time. Christian was not a player with a strong endurance, so after a dozen rounds, his speed slowed down by half a beat. Su Yun seized the opportunity to counterattack. His consecutive unexpected and tricky moves caught Christian off guard. If it were not for Christian's battle experience, he might have really fallen in the hands of Su Yun. Facing this guy who was not weak, Su Yun realized the danger. If this continued, he would be at a disadvantage. Although the opponent's stamina consumption was large enough, he also did not conserve much stamina. Every move was a full attack. Although his shoulder could withstand for a while, it could not withstand for a night. The longer the battle dragged on, the more Su Yun needed to be treated. Moreover, the injured boys also needed to be treated as soon as possible, especially those whose arms were exposed to the bone. If it was infected, the consequences would be unimaginable. They might have to amputate their arms to save their lives. Thinking of this, Su Yun could not help but feel anxious. Christian was keenly aware of this. He was going to waste his time. The longer he wasted time, the more anxious Su Yun would be. The more loopholes and opportunities he could seize. Chapter 1372. After realizing this, Christian began to slow down his pace and switched from attacking to defending. At first, he would occasionally launch a sneak attack, but later, he simply gave up on any counterattacks and entered a completely defensive posture. He was aiming to exhaust Su Yun to death. Although Su Yun had been emphasizing in his heart that he must be calm and collected, it was impossible for him not to think about the unconscious people in front of him. This situation was bound to put Su Yun in trouble. Now, he had been led by the nose by Christian, and Su Yun was clear about this. Just when Su Yun had been slowed down by Christian, Christian suddenly did something even crazier. When Su Yun was focused on finding a flaw to end the battle quickly, he changed his target to Fu Tian. He directly broke away from Su Yun's attack and quickly attacked Fu Tian. Fu Tian was just an ordinary person. Even if he was conscious, it was impossible for him to withstand the full blow of a fierce person like Christian. Su Yun came here to bring Fu Tian and the others away safely. If something happened at this time, his arrival would be meaningless. Su Yun sped up and directly chased after Christian. He must not fall into the hands of this sinister and despicable villain. Thinking of this, Su Yun's mind suddenly went blank with a buzzing sound. How could he forget the sinister and despicable nature of this guy? Christian's target was Su Yun. If he wanted to hurt Fu Tian and the others, he would have done it long ago. Why would he wait until now to provoke Su Yun in front of him? He even had to be distracted. His target was obviously not Fu Tian. Even if Christian was now pointing his sword at Fu Tian, the person he wanted to deal with was still Su Yun. And now, Su Yun, who was chasing after him, had obviously fallen into his trap. At the moment when Su Yun chased after him, Christian suddenly turned around and attacked Su Yun. Su Yun's attention was all on Fu Tian, and he did not expect Christian's counterattack at all. In a flash, the two of them were close to each other. Christian had already planned to punch Su Yun's chest. Su Yun had no chance to dodge, and could only take it head-on. But at this critical moment, since he was unable to dodge, he could not let this bastard take advantage of him. When Su Yun had basically lost his balance, he lifted his leg and hooked it on Christian's crotch. Although Christian succeeded in his sneak attack with a cunning trick, he also paid a heavy price for it. With Su Yun's leg strength, although it was not enough to kick him to death, it at least guaranteed that he would become infertile, and it would be the kind that could not be cured for life. 2 balls were kicked out, and no one would be able to be a straight man in this life. Of course, Su Yun was not so optimistic now. After being punched in the chest by Christian, the degree of pain could be imagined. Su Yun could only retreat to reduce some of the force, but he still could not get rid of most of the force. In the end, he could not help but spit out a mouthful of pus and blood. Christian also retreated, but he could not use this method to reduce the pain in his crotch. Although this pain would not cause him any internal injuries, the psychological trauma was undeniable. After all, he was a man. When he thought that he would no longer be a straight man in the future, and could only play the game of picking up soap with his own kind, how could a normal man bear that kind of pain? Su Yun, you are really too much. Christian was a little hysterical. He could not bear this kind of price. Even if this mission was successful, and he killed Su Yun 1,000 times, it could not make up for the trauma in his heart for a lifetime. Because from today onwards, he was no longer a normal man. In the future, women and what not would have nothing to do with him anymore. Su Yun spat out the remaining blood in his mouth. This is the price you pay for causing trouble in Huaxia. How about it? Do you still want to continue? Continue? Of course. You are already destined to be defeated by me. Christian sneered. This time, I can be very sure of your injury. Unless someone comes to help you, otherwise, you can only die in my hands. You lost. Even if it leaves a lifetime of pain in my body, you still lost. The final winner is me. It's me. Kevin Matthew will still go back to America with me. Did he lose? Su Yun smiled bitterly in his heart. Indeed, he really should not have been careless. But no matter who it was, they would not have thought that Adler's people would find Fu Tian and use Fu Tian to lure him out. Su Yun coming out alone was a very wrong thing to do. Being ambushed when he arrived was a mistake on top of mistakes. He even fell into Christian's trap midway, which was an even bigger mistake. All of this was because Su Yun was too concerned that Fu Tian and the others would be hurt. He really didn't know what kind of nonsense these fellows had spouted to provoke the people General Ade had arranged for them to come here. It seemed that all of this was fated. People were destined to have some disasters in their lives. If they could get through it, they would become stronger. If they could not, then they could only blame their fate. Su Yun used the last of his strength to support his body. Success or failure depended on this one move. If someone could help him control Christian, even if it was just for a few seconds, he had the confidence to fight with him. But now, Su Yun could only resign himself to fate. He took a step back and got into a horse stance. His fist was like an arrow ready to be shot, and his whole body's strength was gathered at one point. Success or failure depended on this one move. Whether he could kill in one move or not depended on whether Christian could dodge it with his speed. This gamble was indeed a little too big. Su Yun knew that his chances of success were very low. His injury was still quite serious. His opponent, on the other hand, was fine except for his crotch. But now that things had come to this, he had to gamble even if he did not want to. Su Yun had no choice. Instead of waiting for death, he might as well give it a shot. Suddenly, a strong airflow burst out from under Su Yun's feet. The stone pavement directly cracked, and the gravel splashed out a few meters. Su Yun's whole body shot out like a thunderbolt, directly attacking Christian's vital part. Christian's mouth twitched, and he sneered. Su Yun was going all out, so he would definitely be the one to win in the end. He only needed to dodge this attack, and everything would be over. Su Yun definitely did not have the ability to make a second attack of this level. Come on. Let's see what you can hit me with. Su Yun suddenly saw a figure flash behind Christian. At this critical moment, an unfamiliar face appeared behind Christian. Suddenly, Christian's attention was focused on Su Yun, and he was subdued. At this time, if Su Yun used all his strength, he would definitely be injured along with the person behind him. And if he stopped, the backlash would cause his internal injuries to worsen. Moreover, he could see that the person who locked Christian was definitely not as strong as him. Christian would be able to break free from the shackles soon. Now, use all your strength. The stranger roared. Su Yun did not hesitate. His fist shot out like an arrow, and the moment Christian broke free from the shackles, Su Yun's fist also hit his chest. The huge impact caused all three of them to fly out, and they all fell heavily to the ground. With this fall, everyone's mind went blank. Although Su Yun was sure that the other party would definitely be severely injured, he really did not have the strength to chase after him, because the backlash had also caused his injuries to worsen. And who was that guy who suddenly appeared out of nowhere to help? What was his current situation? All of these made Su Yun's thoughts chaotic. In just a short 10 seconds of chaos, when Su Yun got up again, Christian had already escaped without a trace. He was seriously injured. If he did not use his last bit of strength to escape, he was afraid that he would not be able to leave even if he wanted to. Chapter 1373. Damn it! Su Yun smashed his fist on the ground. If it wasn't for his injuries slowing down his reaction, he would definitely be able to bring that bastard to justice. Humph, as expected of someone nurtured by General Ade. His judgment was quite accurate, and he could make the most accurate decision in the first instance. Between fighting and escaping, he didn't hesitate at all. Even though Christian knew that Su Yun's injuries were more serious than his, he still chose the safest and most appropriate way to deal with it. He wouldn't gamble with his life. He didn't even know who the person who suddenly appeared and restrained him was. Who knew if there would be a second, or a third? For safety's sake, Christian made the choice without hesitation. Of the 36 stratagems, escape was the best. After all, this was Hua Xia's territory. The other party could summon reinforcements, but he couldn't. Su Yun was furious, but he also realized that the person who suddenly appeared was definitely injured. His full-strength internal energy was enough to penetrate Christian and injure the people behind him. Therefore, the person who restrained Christian for more than a second was definitely not in a good condition. When Su Yun walked closer, he finally saw the appearance of the person in front of him. His appearance could be considered delicate, but the coldness in his eyes allowed Su Yun to easily see that this was a person with a life in his hands. With Su Yun's eyesight, it was impossible for him to see wrongly. That guy left. The reinforcement used his elbow to support his body and sat up on the ground. From his panting appearance, it wasn't hard to see that he was really exhausted. Perhaps Su Yun's punch had caused enough damage to him. "Brother, thank you for your help just now." "You are?" Su Yun was a little surprised. He had never seen this young man before, so why would he stand out to help him? "Do we know each other?" Su Yun was still a little vigilant. After all, this person had appeared out of nowhere. Su Yun couldn't be sure if this guy was one of them or if there was any possibility of danger, so it was better to be vigilant. The young man did not avoid Su Yun's questioning gaze. "My name is Xiong Zhou. Among these fellows, there is a fellow who has done me a favor. I can't just let him be tricked by someone else and not think of a way. But that person just now was too powerful. I couldn't possibly be his opponent. Later, I heard a call saying that a powerful reinforcement like you had arrived, so I've been lurking and waiting for an opportunity." After saying that, Xiong Zhou paused for a moment. "Actually, with your strength, you still have a high chance of winning against that guy. It's just that he tricked you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Am I right?" "You've been hiding here all this time?" Su Yun was startled. This guy's strength shouldn't be weak, and was about the same as Lin Gu. But if he wanted to conceal his aura so that he couldn't detect it, it was a little impossible, right? This guy's ability to conceal his aura was really not bad. Xiong Zhou seemed to have seen Su Yun's doubts. "In my line of work, my profession is to conceal my aura. If I don't have this ability, then I can't eat my bowl of rice." Hee. Although it is said that the police and the criminals are not of the same family, our purpose today is the same. You can't be calculative with me, right? Assassin. Su Yun seemed to understand this. The aura concealment of a professional assassin was better than that of an ordinary expert. So, although this guy's strength was not as good as his, he could conceal his aura so that he couldn't detect it. This was the basic quality of a professional assassin. This was the terrifying part of a professional assassin. Xiong Zhou nodded. "To make a living, I'm just making do. I'm not as good as you professional national soldiers. The income is not stable, and the social status is not high. I can't be compared to you. Among them, who do you think has done you a favor?" Su Yun pointed at Fu Tian and the others. "It's better for me to know more about this. I don't mean anything else. After all, we are not very familiar with each other, right?" Xiong Zhou smiled bitterly and pointed at Di Cheng. "I said that I'm familiar with that guy, but you definitely aren't familiar with him. I came back together with him from Australia. Today, on the first day, he came to drink with his brothers. Originally, he asked me to come along, but I didn't want to disturb his brother's reunion, so I didn't agree. I also heard that Hua Xia hasn't been peaceful in recent years, so I secretly followed to see the situation. I didn't expect that something would really happen." After saying that, Xiong Zhou shook his head helplessly. "My brain is already big. Once I encounter a problem, I even encounter such a person who is not to be trifled with. This guy is really fierce. What kind of hatred does he have with you?" "A national feud." Su Yun didn't have enough trust in Xiong Zhou, but this guy had helped him at a critical moment. Although his character was unknown, at least they weren't enemies. "Since you're here, I'll leave them to you. Send them to the hospital as soon as possible." "Brother, I don't have a car here, so I'm afraid it's not very convenient. Xiong Zhozhou scratched his head awkwardly. How did you get here? Su Yun parked the car far away. It wasn't that he didn't want to send them to the hospital, but he had to go back as soon as possible to tell Wan Guangxiao about this matter. Those people had entered Huaxia again, and they were so strong. They had to be strictly guarded. Su Yun couldn't be sure how many people the other party had this time. The matter was urgent and couldn't be delayed. Now that Christian was seriously injured, it was also a good opportunity for them to catch him. Although Yanjing City was big and had a high population density, as long as they worked hard, they wouldn't have a chance if they didn't look for him. As long as they searched, even if there was a 1 in 1,000 chance, there was still a chance. Su Yun was very clear about this, so he had to let Wan leader call for an emergency meeting as soon as possible. You only need to call the emergency center, then use these guys' phones to inform their respective guardians. You don't need to do the rest of the things. Su Yun, these were all young masters of big families. As soon as he called their families, someone would immediately come to deal with it. What Xiong Zhozhou needed to do was to call the emergency number and then stay here. What about you, brother? Xiong Zhozhou looked back at the fainted guys. When he turned back again, Su Yun had already left. He left in such a hurry. Oh damn. Xiong Zhozhou was speechless. Isn't he leaving too quickly? Then he could only brace himself and stay here. He was really afraid that the damn foreigner would come back. If that happened, he would really have no power to fight back and could only wait to be captured. God, please bless me. Don't let me suffer so much when I just arrived in Huaxia. Xiong Zhozhou sighed helplessly. He had come here to look for someone. Now, he had gotten himself into such a big trouble before he could do anything. These guys were all young masters of big families. After they were sent to the hospital to inform their families, he had to leave immediately. Otherwise, he would definitely be questioned and scolded severely. Alas, Xiong Zhozhou felt a headache when he thought of this. Di Cheng, what kind of unreliable brothers did you make? They are really capable. They even know the big shots of the National Special Forces. TSK. Awesome. Although Xiong Zhozhou was complaining in his heart, his hands were not idle at all. He quickly called the emergency center and then took out these guys' phones to inform their families. These guys were really good. They spent their father's money endlessly. None of the names saved in their phones were nicknames. Fu Tian saved his father's phone number as Old Ghost Fu, while Di Cheng saved his father's phone number as That Old Bastard at Home. If Di Cheng's father, who worked hard to earn money every day in Beijing so that he and his mother could live freely in Australia, knew about it, he would definitely vomit blood. Chapter 1374. Su Yun made contact with Wan Guangxiao on the way back. After hearing Su Yun's explanation, Wan Guangxiao was certain that the person was sent by Adler. The way he did things was too similar to Adler's. Every move was sinister and cunning. Wan Guangxiao immediately informed Wang Yi to hold an emergency meeting. He also rushed back to the headquarters. The matter couldn't be delayed and had to be resolved as soon as possible. Therefore, when Su Yun rushed back to the main force, the 2 people on night duty had been transferred back. The people who replaced them were all people from the reserve forces, and the elites of Dragon's Fury and the other special forces had all entered a state of level 1 combat readiness. This matter wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't a small one. An agent secretly trained by the Americans had infiltrated Huaxia and even set up a trap for Su Yun. He even ambushed Su Yun and injured him. This was definitely not a small matter. Wan Guangxiao knew very well that there were very few people in Dragon Brigade who could injure Su Yun in a one-on-one fight. None of the Special Forces members of the same generation could match up to Su Yun's current strength. Even a careful person like Su Yun had been tricked. This opponent was really strong. For such a strong person to be sent out by General Adler, it seemed like General Adler was determined to settle Matthew's matter as soon as possible. Wan Guangxiao liked this kind of method of settling things quickly. He would always send in a few people who weren't up to standard. He would get angry and feel that Adler was looking down on the warriors of Huaxia. Now, this was the only way to ignite Wan Guangxiao's passion. At Wan Guangxiao's age, of course, he wouldn't personally go into battle. But if his people could defeat Adler's people, that would definitely make him excited for a while. This was also a kind of achievement. This was also a kind of victory. Even though they had retired to the second line, their desire to win was still as strong as when they were young. Especially when Wan Guangxiao met Adler, his competitive spirit was incisively and vividly aroused. This was a habit formed after so many years in the International Special Forces Training Center. He probably wouldn't be able to change it in this lifetime, right? Adler. Come, I'll let you know that when you were in the training center, you lost more than you won. Later on, in some international disputes, you still lost more than you won. And now when we can't fight anymore and it's become the era of the young people, your people still lose more than they win in front of my people. No. They keep losing. I don't intend to let your people win. Wan Guangxiao's heart was getting more and more excited by this matter. It had been a long time since he had been so hot-blooded. It seemed that his old opponent could still arouse his passion. All the elites of the special forces gathered at the scene. Wan Guangxiao let Su Yun talk about what happened an hour ago. In just a few dozen moves, the opponent's mind changed unpredictably. There were so many schemes and tricks that it could be described in Fan Duyo's words. It's impossible to guard against. Seeing that even Su Yun almost lost in a one-on-one fight, the other members of the special forces were all very shocked. After all, they were all companions who knew each other since young. Su Yun's individual combat ability had always been the best among their generation. There was really no one who could gain any advantage over Su Yun in a one-on-one fight. The opponent they were facing now was someone even Su Yun couldn't gain any advantage over. And what gave them the most headache was that they didn't even know how many people the opponent had. There was only one person who could tell what the opponent looked like, and it was a relatively similar face analyzed from Su Yun's memory using a computer database. It could be said that they could only be sure that he was a foreigner. They knew almost nothing else. Are you feeling very confused? Don't know how to do it? Wan Guangxiao finally spoke. Then let me tell you, when dealing with people like them, you will definitely be confused, and quite confused. But if I don't let you do this, who else can I rely on? If you are confused, then the others will be even more confused. I don't need to say anything more. Look at Su Yun's current situation and you should understand how dangerous the opponent is. After drinking a mouthful of water, Wan Guangxiao continued, with his strength, if I say that he is top-notch among you, you won't have any objections, right? Then what about you? How should you face such a danger? How should you deal with such a seemingly unsolvable problem? Have you thought about it? Everyone was silent. No one knew how to deal with it, but no one was afraid. No matter how powerful the Americans were, they couldn't back down. The problem they faced now was how to reduce the possibility of being used by the opponent. This group of iron-blooded men who liked to be straightforward, although they understood that all was fair in war, it was difficult for them to continuously identify the opponent's ever-changing tricks. For example, Su Yun was already cautious enough. His reaction speed and judgment were also quite sharp, but it was still difficult for him to timely determine the tricks that the opponent suddenly used in the confrontation. What they had to prevent was this. As long as they could prevent this, then everything else would not be a problem. There is one more problem. Wan Guangxiao said, Su Yun now suspects that the opponent is more likely to enter Huaxia alone than a team entering Huaxia, because after the opponent was injured, he chose to escape quickly. Although we can't rule out the possibility that he has other companions, if there are companions, it would be better for them to surround and attack. So, Su Yun's judgment is possible. Immediately, Wan Guangxiao's tone changed. But, I don't think so. With Aide's character, he definitely wouldn't arrange for just one person to enter Huaxia. He wouldn't take such a big risk. So, I infer that General Aide's subordinates are definitely not less than 10. and each of them received the mission independently, without any contact between them. Everyone was stunned. Why was that? Since he arranged for so many people to come together and didn't allow them to contact each other, wasn't that the same as not concentrating their strength? For example, today, if the two of them had joined forces, perhaps Su Yun wouldn't even have the chance to stand in front of them. This was indeed not something they could understand. After all, Wan Guangxiao understood his old rival better. General Ade wanted to take them by surprise. His subordinates had already arranged a team to deal with this matter, and they had already failed. The 12 heavenly stars were an example. Now, if he arranged for so many people to enter Huaxia at the same time, wouldn't the authorities of Huaxia be suspicious? Of course not. Moreover, the elite soldiers under his command were all carefully selected to be able to take charge of a region on their own. If they were to work together without a good chemical reaction, they would not be able to accomplish anything and would be more likely to spoil things. This was also something that couldn't not exist. When everyone thought that they were the strongest and despised others, this team would never be able to unite. In other words, these people that General Ade had arranged were indeed powerful people, but none of them could make people of the same level submit to them. General Ade must have considered this problem, otherwise he wouldn't have arranged it this way. Sending them out individually, each of their strategies and plans would be different. This would be able to catch Huaxia unprepared and impossible to guard against. Even if their own people knew that other than themselves, there were other people arranged by the higher-ups, they wouldn't have any fluctuations in their hearts. They would only do this more diligently and think of a way to take the credit for themselves as soon as possible to prove that they were more capable than others. General Ade had thought of all these aspects, which was why he arranged it this way. In this world, who could see through Ade's plan? Perhaps only his old rival, Wan Guangxiao, could do that. Wan Guangxiao's lips curled into a smile. When Ade's buttocks lifted up, whether it was fart or excretion, he could clearly guess. Know thyself and know thy enemy to win 100 battles, Wan Guangxiao thought in his heart. Ade, this simple logic was taught to you by me. Chapter 1375. The injured Christian quickly fled the scene. He didn't even get a clear look at the appearance of Chang Yaojin, who had appeared out of nowhere. There was no way to prevent miscalculation. Christian had never thought that he would stumble at the very beginning. Damn Su Yun. Too insidious. Christian believed that Chang Yaojin, who came out of nowhere, must be Su Yun's accomplice. They must have planned it beforehand. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to perfectly coordinate and control him in such a short time at such a critical moment, giving Su Yun a chance to give him a fatal blow. I was too careless. Christian regretted it. He really didn't think of this. In fact, it was indeed so. If he could play dirty, why couldn't others? Of course they could. All is fair in war. He didn't expect that Christian, who had always been cunning, would put himself in a difficult situation. His identity was exposed, and Su Yun couldn't take him down. This directly sounded the alarm to the opponent, telling them that he was here. Presumably, Huaxia's officials had already begun to search for him. Even Christian, who was in these procedures, knew very well that he couldn't go back to the hotel he was staying in. That kind of place with many eyes seemed safe, but it was definitely the most dangerous place. The truly safe place was a place with few people. The fewer people who saw him, the better. Even if his identity couldn't be announced by Huaxia's secret executive force, he still needed to be careful. No one saw him, and no one knew his whereabouts. That was the best. Many vicious criminals, even if they didn't have special physiques, were good at hiding and hiding. These people could survive by avoiding crowded places as much as possible. As long as they could avoid crowded places, they could avoid their identity as much as possible. In this way, the possibility of being exposed could be greatly reduced. As long as you did this, the people who wanted to catch you would have to spend a lot of energy. That was only for ordinary criminals. For a master like Christian, it would be even more difficult to catch him. Not to mention that people like him had a strong sense of vigilance. his hiding ability was definitely much stronger than ordinary criminals. Christian believed that as long as he was careful enough, the other party would not be able to find him easily. Originally, the enemy was in the light while he was in the dark. Now, the situation was reversed. He was like a turtle in a jar. But no matter what, he had to complete the general's mission. No matter how difficult the situation was, he had to persevere until the end, complete the final task, and give the general an explanation. Even if he were to die in Huaxia, he would make Kevin Matthew take the initiative to return to America. To a certain extent, he was General Aid's mission machine. In his mind, completing the mission was far more important than anything else. Christian, who quickly left the scene of Maple Forest Park, checked the map of Beijing's geographical location on his phone. He immediately made a judgment and headed straight for the northern outskirts with more mountainous terrain. This kind of place was more suitable for hiding. Moreover, according to some of the national conditions in Huaxia, this kind of remote outskirts of mountainous areas would often have people who were rich and powerful living there. To put it more clearly, these remote mountainous areas might be directly rented by rich and powerful people. They would build a luxurious villa and hide their mistress in a golden house. There would be an ambitious beauty who would come a few times a month to find some fun. This kind of thing was quite normal. There were quite a lot of such situations. Christian decided to look for such a place and see if he could find a young woman who was alone in an empty room. This way, he could rest and recuperate in peace and recuperate from his injuries. At the same time, he would not be short of food and drink, and he could sleep with a human pillow to hug. Thinking of this, Christian could not help but tighten his pants again. He could recuperate his internal injuries, but what about the injuries below? There was no way to heal it. This was definitely the pain of his life. Christian clenched his teeth and clenched his fists. He thought to himself, Su-yun, don't let me see you again. If I have the chance to see you again, I will definitely return this pain to you 100,000 times. 1,000,000 times. I will also let you have a taste of losing your dignity as a man. Of course, now was not the time to think about these things. Christian quickly found an unguarded parking lot. He looked around and took out a multi-function key from his pocket. He inserted the key into the car door lock. After a series of automatic electronic decoding, the car lights flashed and the door lock was opened with a click. Christian sat in the car and took out a few wires from under the steering wheel. After wiping them a few times, the car started buzzing. He directly got into the car and quickly drove to the southern outskirts of Beijing. That's right, he was driving in the opposite direction. He believed that he would soon be monitored by various parties, so it was necessary to do something. Christian ran all the way until there was not a drop of gas left in the half-tank of the car. When the car could not start anymore, he stopped the car and flashed into a sparsely populated and unmonitored road. After walking for half an hour, Christian got a second car. He was still driving to a place further away from the northern outskirts. After repeating this for most of the night, he took an unlicensed black taxi and rushed to the sparsely populated mountain range in the northern outskirts. Why did he take an unlicensed taxi? Because there was nothing in the unlicensed taxi, and the driver of the unlicensed taxi would not admit that he took someone, so this was the safest way. Christian knew this because he had lived in Huaxia for a period of time, so he knew these things about Huaxia. After all, there was no such thing as an unlicensed black taxi in the United States. The sky in the east was already turning white, and Christian had just arrived at his final destination, the northern outskirts of Beijing. The situation was similar to what he had imagined. The northern outskirts with several small hills were not densely scattered with all kinds of villas. There were American rustic style, modern simple style, Chinese style, European classical style, Mediterranean style, Southeast Asian style, neoclassical style, Gothic style. There were all kinds of villas, and there was almost no overlap. This was the strength of the rich people in Beijing. This was called domineering. Where were the rich people the most? Maybe it was not Europe or America, or maybe it was not those people on the wealth list. The real rich people might not be on the wealth list. For example, Zhou Hu, who was pulled down by Wei Wu Xiandao, was involved in 37 companies: petrochemical, real estate, finance, cultural tourism, and infrastructure. It was said that the confiscated property was close to 100 billion yuan. And this was only the people who could be pulled down. Were there some more powerful people who were very stable? The strength and wealth behind them were probably even more terrifying. The owners of these small villas in the suburbs were probably nothing in front of those big tigers. Soon, Christian eliminated some villas through interrogation and snooping, and finally confirmed a villa where there was definitely only one mistress at home. He was going to take this villa. After taking down this villa, at least he could rest during the day and recover from his injuries in peace. Even if there was a man coming back, it would definitely be after 10 o'clock at night. Rich people would definitely have a lot of social engagements. Christian did not hesitate any longer. He quickly sneaked into the villa, avoided the cameras, and went straight up to the attic of the 3rd floor. He stuffed a card-like thing into the window. With a gentle push, the window opened with a click. It did not trigger the alarm. It seemed that the rich people in Huaxia knew how to protect themselves better than the rich people in the United States. Chapter 1376. Christian sneaked into the villa. Other than the sound of the bathroom washing up, there was no other sound in the room. There should be no one else in the villa except for the hostess who was washing up in the bathroom. To be safe, Christian quickly checked all the 20 or so rooms in the villa. In a room on the 3rd floor, Christian also saw a large training chair and various sadomasochistic instruments. He didn't expect the owner of this villa to have such a hobby. Even a guy from the most open country couldn't help but be amazed. This was really too rich. 10 minutes later, except for the bathroom where the sound of running water came from, the danger in every corner was eliminated. Christian sat comfortably on the large sheepskin sofa in the living room. He turned around and took out a bottle of high-end wine from the high-end wine cabinet next to the sofa. He directly uncorked the bottle with his mouth and drank a few mouthfuls without hesitation. He could recuperate well today. Christian was waiting for the young woman to finish bathing so that she could come out and give him a good massage. Only in this way could he relieve the tiredness and sleepiness of the whole night. When he was thoroughly comfortable, he could then conserve his energy and recuperate and heal his injuries. He only needed 2 or 3 days. He hoped that the owner of the house wouldn't come back in these 2 or 3 days. If the owner of the house really came back, then he could only find another family to harm. Soon, half a bottle of wine was gone. At this time, Christian finally heard the sound of the bathroom door opening. Finally, there was someone who could serve him. Christian put the bottle on the coffee table. The bottom of the bottle and the table made a crisp sound. The person in the bathroom seemed to have heard the sound from the living room. She asked softly, "Why did you come back after leaving for only a few hours? Didn't you say that you would have a meeting in Shenzhen for a week?" When Christian heard this, his face immediately showed a smile. "So that's the case. That's great. I just left for a few hours and will come back after a week." Ha ha ha, that's exactly what I wanted. He didn't need a week at all. He only needed a few days. In his excitement, Christian couldn't help but take another sip of the wine. The spiciness passed through his throat and made him feel comfortable all over. "Why are you drinking so early in the morning?" The female lead, who was slowly walking over, heard the noise and smelled the alcohol. "If you drink so much every day, what will happen to you in the future? Who will take care of me then? Just treat it as if you're doing this for me. Drink as little as you can. Don't drink when you're not socializing. Why are you drinking so early in the morning? What's troubling you? Who provoked you again?" "My dear." The beautiful girl, who was only wrapped in a bath towel, was at most 20 years old. She walked into the living room while drying her wet hair. When she saw the man on the sofa, her mind went blank. What was going on? One had to know that her man was bald. Not to mention this head of blonde hair, even his black hair was pitifully few. There were only a few strands. Who the hell was this guy? Christian turned around and smiled. The alcohol made him fearless and even made him forget about his current situation. The little beauty in front of him really suited his taste. She was a typical Oriental beauty, the kind that came from a humble family. From her neck to her arms, from her waist to her long legs, they were all so slender that it felt like they would break with a snap. Ha ha ha, this was his cup of tea. Christian could now be sure that he really didn't choose the wrong place. These delicate beauties were more than enough to choose models internationally. But now, they could only be thrown in such a remote suburb for a man to enjoy. It was such a pity, such a pity. What a waste of natural resources. You. Who are you? The little beauty looked at the foreigner in front of her with a shocked expression. She didn't hear any sound of someone breaking in. This foreigner just appeared out of thin air. There were only two possibilities. The first possibility was that this foreigner had transmigrated here. Recently, she had watched too many movies. She really believed that such a thing was true. The second possibility was that this foreigner was arranged by that damned old man to deliberately test her. Was he actually just a bodyguard? That damned old man was really something. He actually used such a method to test her? Was he doubting her loyalty? Damn it, I've been with you since I was 18. All these years, I've only served a bastard like you. You can play with me however you want. What else do you want? You actually doubted me and found a young foreigner to test me? Get out of my house immediately. Otherwise, I'll call the police. After the little beauty guessed for a while, she realized that this matter must be that damned old man testing her. Humph, I'm not a woman who can be easily controlled. When I was 16, I already had an affair with someone. Now you're using this on me. I'll only give you 1 minute. Little beauty, don't be so unapproachable. Since I can come here, it means that there's fate between the two of us. Don't you think so? As Christian spoke, he stood up and approached the little beauty in front of him step by step. I can see your love room on the 3rd floor. Hey. I think you are also a romantic person. The two of us have similar interests. Hearing this guy actually say such shameless words, even the little beauty with the identity of Canary blushed. How dare this person be so bold? If that damned old man knew that he dared to take liberties with her, wouldn't he want his life? Humph, I've seen people who aren't afraid of death, but I've never seen such a fearless person. A foreigner is indeed a foreigner. But, the Caucasian in the Western movies that the damned old man likes to watch seems to have strong, athletic ability. I wonder if this guy is strong in that aspect too? Canary suddenly realized that she was thinking too much. If she continued to fantasize, she would definitely not be able to control herself and do something with this Caucasian. If she were to be disloyal to that damned old ghost would definitely kick her away. She had wasted the best 2 years of her youth on that damned old ghost. If she were to be kicked away now, then she would have nothing to gain. At the very least, she had to get a household registration in Beijing from that damned old man. She didn't have high requirements for a car as long as it could be used as a means of transportation. Any small BMW or small Audi was fine as long as it was imported. She definitely wouldn't drive a domestic car as it would be embarrassing in front of her friends. The most important thing was her savings. Now that the yuan had depreciated so much, she had to at least get 100 or 200 million from that damned old man to ensure that she would have no worries for the rest of her life, right? There was no need to talk about small fractions like 1 million or 10 million. She still remembered when she was a few years old, her neighbor had won 5 million yuan. That was considered rich, and she thought that she wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of her life. What about now, more than a decade later? What was 5 million yuan? Any house in Beijing's 3rd ring was worth that much, right? In the era where 5 million yuan could make one a millionaire, 500 yuan was enough for a family of 3 to live for a month. But now, 500 yuan? It wasn't even enough for her to buy a 7-piece pack of imported sanitary pads. Was money still valuable? Was there a need to explain? It wasn't valuable anymore. 10 years ago, it was white-collar workers with a monthly salary of more than 10,000 yuan. Now, those with a monthly salary of more than 10,000 yuan were all losers. Therefore, Canary absolutely couldn't fall into this trap because of a moment of impulse. The secret stash she got from that damned old man was only about 3 million yuan. If she was kicked away by that damned old man now, she could at most live a carefree life with this money for 5 years. 5 years later, she would be 25 years old. At that time, she would be old and her body would start to decline. Where would she go to hook up with rich people? She wasn't a celebrity or a model. Even if she was old, there would still be rich people who liked this kind of taste to provide for her. Therefore, she had to make use of the remaining 5 years of her youth to get as much as she could from that damned old man. Even if this damned old man in front of her looked really tempting, she really wanted to suck him dry and touch him clean. But she still had to hold it in. "You're not leaving, right? Fine. I'll call the police," Canary said and quickly ran to the table and grabbed the phone. Of course, she wouldn't really call the police. She just wanted this guy to quickly admit his identity. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.